Am I on? I'm on. Okay. Do I have a motion to return to open session?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion passes. Do I have a motion to certify closed session that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second is made. Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion passes. Thank you, everyone, for being here tonight. As we begin tonight's meeting, I ask that those in the audience silence your cell phones. Cell phone notifications can be distracting to others in the audience and to the board. Also, we do not have Mr. Chewbacca here tonight, so there are just 6 of us this evening. Our student representative this evening is Sam Woolsey from Blacksburg High School. However, I believe we have a statement from our other.
When we get to student representative reports, I'll
Reports,
read
okay.
from Emma's statement.
Okay. So Sam, will you read our mission, vision, and core values?
Yes. First, our mission. MCPS is an innovative educational community. We value diversity, and we are committed to equity and inclusion. MCPS empowers learners to realize success in an ever-changing global society through collaboration with communities, families, staff, and students. MCPS provides a safe, engaging learning environment and intentional exposure to positive social, emotional, and academic experiences. Our beliefs. 1. All students can learn in order to pursue their dreams. 2. Schools are safe places of joy, wonder, and creativity. 3. Every person deserves to be loved, valued, and respected. 4. Kindness is an essential skill of a responsible, productive community member. 5. The diversity of our community is one of our greatest strengths. 6. All people deserve equitable access to opportunities and resources. 7. Every child deserves an advocate. 8. Honoring the voices of students and other stakeholders strengthens the school community. 9. Open communication and feedback are vital to our growth. 10. Learning and teaching are collective efforts that begin at birth and involve the entire community. 11. Relationship building and high expectations are foundational to student success.
Thank you, Sam. Now is the time for our student representative reports. You want to go ahead, Sam?
Sure, yes. So our report from Blacksburg High School, recently we had our first full homecoming with the game, court, and dance since 2019. And aside from the scoreboard at the game, I would say it was a success. And in terms of sports though, our golf team recently won their state championship. And tonight the volleyball team is hosting the regional tournament. And the cross-country team hosted the regional VHSL meet tonight. And that should be over. Results should be on Twitter. They were expected to win. And in terms of arts, the marching band got a superior rating at their state assessment and will compete at state championships on Saturday. Our academics are on par with the golf team. Our Quiz Bowl team placed second at a Virginia Tech tournament and hosted a tournament at BHS recently. And the results from the National Merit Scholarship came out. We had one National Merit semifinalist, that happened to be me. 19 National Merit Commended Scholars, and 2 National Hispanic Recognition Awards, and 4 National African American Recognition Awards.
Well, congratulations, Sam. And Ms. Drake, you have Emma Whitaker could not be with us this evening from Auburn High School, but she did prepare a statement to have read.
She did. So highlights from Auburn High School. AHS had a blood drive last Thursday, and between students and community volunteers, they were able to meet their goals for units of blood collected. The volleyball team entered the playoffs and is playing in the regional semifinals this evening at Auburn. The boys cross-country team won the MED District Championship last week and will run in the region meet at Blacksburg High School tomorrow. The marching band competed in 2 competitions, and they won both competitions in the AA class. Auburn High School has also finished up their homecoming activities with their dance, and it was well attended despite having to move it due to the hurricane that came through earlier in October. Auburn High School students had several opportunities to participate in outstanding field trips this semester. Art students have gone to JMU and Lynchburg College, my personal alma mater, and the Intro to Drones class went to the Wing facility at Christiansburg. Currently, the Beta Club at Auburn High School is collecting winter hats, mittens, and gloves for the Montgomery County Christmas store, and the band, choir, and music departments are working hard on winter performances that will take place in December. And that is the report from Emma Whitaker.
Thank you, Emma and Ms. Drake. So tonight, let's see, our schools will present both the October and November Seniors of the Month. Mr. Pauly, you're up.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Whitaker. A very special highlight of our board meeting is the recognition of a Senior of the Month from each of our 4 high schools. Photos and leadership profiles are displayed on the screens in the boardroom and will also be on display in the lobby of the central office. Our presentation format provides a snapshot of each senior and a quote from their administrator or teacher who nominated them for this recognition. Tonight, we will have presentations from each of the 4 high schools, as Ms. Cass said, for October and November. We will start with Chris Stewart, the principal of Auburn High School, and then go in alphabetical order with the principal of Blacksburg High School, Adam Simpson, followed by the assistant principal of Christiansburg High School, Shane Gwynn, and lastly, the principal of Eastern Montgomery High School, Todd Lewis. So at this time, we'll start with Mr. Stewart.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Whitaker. It is my pleasure to present to you Auburn High School's Senior of the Month. This evening, I would like to start with our October Senior of the Month, Emily Michaela King. I'd like to invite Emily and her family up to join me. I'd like to take just a moment and read a brief statement from one of the staff members at Auburn High School. Emily has been a huge asset to the CTE programs at Auburn High School. She has an egg business, combining her passion for agriculture and her entrepreneurship skills. She was an instrumental part of the T-shirt group and the sensory path that was created at Auburn Elementary School last year, and is always an active participant in class who conducts herself with kindness and maturity. Emily has been accepted to Virginia Tech and plans on attending Virginia Tech next year. Congratulations, Emily. At this time, I'd like to recognize our November Senior of the Month, Madison Kylie Marie Hines. I'd like to invite Madison and her family up. I'd like to read a brief statement from one of our staff members. It is a pleasure to recognize Madison Hines as the November Student of the Month. Madison is a dedicated student who strives to do her best on all assignments by being prepared and asking questions whenever needed. Her work is excellent. Madison is willing to help others in her group with understanding concepts. As a member of the Scholastic Bowl and MAC teams, I have witnessed strong leadership qualities as well as the high level of respect that her peers have for her. She is both an outstanding student and a valuable member of the academic teams at Auburn High School. Congratulations, Madison.
Good evening, school board members, Dr. Whitaker. It is my honor and privilege to present the Seniors of the Month for October and November from Blacksburg High School. And we're going to start with Patrick Davis, and we'd like to invite him and his family to join us at this time. All right, Patrick, here's what one of your teachers had to say about you. I'm honored to speak on behalf of Patrick Davis, a student I have had the privilege to teach for the past 3 years. It is difficult to only highlight a few of Patrick's accomplishments and standout characteristics. He currently represents his school as the SCA president. I have been fortunate enough to watch Patrick's leadership skills emerge in the classroom, which have been instrumental in many of our fundraising and catering projects. He is always the first one in the culinary lab and the last one to leave. He enters daily with a cheerful spirit, the strongest work ethic in tow, and volunteers with any daily task that needs to be done. Patrick is an asset to my class, and even though he portrays leadership skills, he is also a team player, always willing to help others with any task. And Patrick plans to attend Virginia Tech and major in automotive engineering. Congratulations, Patrick. For the Senior of the Month for November, I'd like to recognize Amaya Williams. I'd like to welcome Amaya and her family to join me as well. All right, Amaya is a very bright student who has natural leadership skills. She is well respected by her teachers and her peers. She is an officer of the BHS Black Awareness Club and has served on the Student Equity Cabinet. She feels passionately that all students should have a voice and should be treated with dignity and respect. Recently, at a BHS faculty meeting, she presented in front of about 90 teachers, along with 2 of her peers, about their personal experiences in high school and steps that teachers can take to make all students feel safe and welcome in their classrooms. We are proud of Amaya and her willingness to stand up for what is right. Congratulations, Amaya.
Good evening, members of the board and Dr. Whitaker. Thank you all for having us here this evening. First up, I would like to recognize our October Senior of the Month, Mr. Ty French. Ty, if you and your mother could come up, it would be greatly appreciated. When asking one of Ty's teachers to describe Ty, she said, "I was impressed then with how, as a 9th grader, he was focused, caring, intelligent, helpful to other students, and participated in so many school activities. I should have known then, but could not fully anticipate what an impressive young man this senior would develop into. Ty has continued to rise above the tough times and excelled in every way. He continues to be polite, studious, and help others rise above their circumstances with guidance and a kind word whenever he can help. After high school, Ty plans to study Homeland Security and/or criminal justice alongside cybersecurity. Ty has already been accepted to East Tennessee State University and Ohio University, but has not made a decision on which he will attend. Good luck in your future, Ty. Congratulations." We would now like to take an opportunity to recognize our November Student of the Month. Could Mr. Joseph Gravely and his family please come up to be recognized? When asking one of his teachers to describe Joseph, she said, "I am so incredibly thankful that I've been able to watch Joseph grow into the wonderful young man that he is. He is kind, thoughtful, strong, funny, and free-spirited. He is also considerate, helpful, empathetic, and inquisitive. I use all of these words with intention, not just as adjectives to describe who I believe to be a stellar student. Joseph embodies the core values of Christiansburg High School, being responsible, respectful, and connected. He considers others before his own wants and needs, owns his own actions, and is always reaching out to see how he can be better for himself, for our student body, and for our school as a whole. Joseph is an amazing young man, and I cannot wait to see the mark he makes on the world." After high school, Joseph plans to follow his dream of becoming a sports psychologist, along with pursuing his certification to be a personal strength coach and hopefully minor in marketing. Joseph has applied to NRCC, Virginia Tech, James Madison, George Mason, and Radford University in hopes of giving himself the best possible options to pursue his future plans. Congratulations, Joseph.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Whitaker. Unfortunately, our October Senior of the Month was unable to be here this evening. However, it is my pleasure to introduce the November Senior of the Month for Eastern Montgomery High School, Madison Bruce. Maddie is here with her family, and I'd like to ask them to come forward at this time. In recognition of Maddie's accomplishments, I would like to read a quote from Andrew Staniland, Maddie's physics teacher. When you see Madison Bruce on the soccer field, you immediately notice the drive, determination, and perseverance that make Madison the Class I State Player of the Year as she led her team to a second consecutive state championship. While she is a fierce competitor, these traits are also evident in the classroom. She transferred into physics at the start of the fall semester, and she was faced with the challenge of being behind her classmates. Through hard work and determination, she has now become a leader in the physics classroom, lending support to her classmates in the lab and on assignments. She is also a senior leader of the EMHS MAC science team and is committed to serving her EMHS community. As a member of SGA, Beta, and Interact clubs, she does more than simply volunteer at school events, fundraisers, and activities. She takes the lead in planning, organizing, and orchestrating these events with a willing attitude and a smile. Madison Bruce has had a significant impact on our school, and she makes the people around her better. We are proud to have her represent the Eastern Montgomery High School community. Please join me in congratulating Madison Bruce.
Congratulations to all of our seniors of the month. We're all very proud of you. Our next agenda item is public address. We welcome the opportunity to hear from students, parents, employees, and community members about education matters in this community. As a reminder, the board sets aside 30 minutes to start our public address. We have the option to extend in 30-minute increments, which Ms. Drake will remind us of. If there are additional speakers after 90 minutes, the board will continue with their business meeting and hold one additional 30-minute session at the end of the business meeting. The clock continues through applause and disruptions. The more disruptions there are, the fewer speakers who get to address the board. I will call each speaker up by name in the order that they signed up. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. The board does not respond to speakers during public address. The screens will show when the speaker has 30 seconds remaining and when time is up. Please state your name and the area of the county you live in. The first speakers are Stevie Bowman, and then on deck is Lowell Bowman.
Good evening. My name is Stevie Bowman. I'm the chairwoman for Moms for Liberty here in Montgomery County. I live in Reiner. First, I would like to commend Dr. Johnson and Mr. Garrettson for taking the time last week to meet with my husband and I. We discussed steps this school system needs to take to protect rape victims in our schools. And we discussed changes that need to be made to the sexual assault policy. Thank you both for your efforts to keep our children safe. I will be in touch to make sure these policies are implemented. Secondly, tonight, I would like to discuss our weak leadership on this school board. About an hour before our meeting, my husband received an email from Mr. Chewbacca. In his email, he wanted to let my husband know when and where it is appropriate to discuss our daughter's rape. This email was perceived by me as an intimidation tactic. I can assure you that I am not spineless, and I will not be deterred to speak at these meetings by anyone. I would like to point out that I had previously sent an email to a couple members on this board, and I requested a meeting. Neither agreed to meet with me. I realize that the discussion of rape may make you uncomfortable. It is a difficult subject to talk about. Change is also difficult, and can be uncomfortable at times. But the rape culture in this school system must change. Therefore, it is absolutely necessary for my husband and I to have these discussions at these meetings. The public needs to understand that rape is being covered up by this school system. Speaking of change, we have 4 members on this board whose term expires next year. If anyone listening tonight wants to be a strong voice for our children and parental rights, please contact me. We need strong leaders that will fight for our children. We need leaders that respect parents' rights. We need leaders that can work together instead of bickering and fighting. Lastly, we need leaders that do not use intimidation tactics to try and deter parents from speaking at these meetings. I encourage everyone to go to momsforliberty.org and join our fight. Our children are the future of America, and we must fight for them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bowman. Mrs. Bowman, next, Mr. Bowman. And on deck, hold on one second, is Cassidy Ackerman Garvin.
Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. I didn't know if you were done talking.
Oh, no, I'm done. I apologize. Yeah.
Thank you. So I wanted to speak about the policy changes that you guys probably will be discussing tonight. That's 6.5, 6.9. There was all kinds of 6 point, all kinds of things, right? So my understanding of those policies is you have primary materials and you have supplementary materials. The primary materials, I understand, from what I gather, can be vetted or are vetted before they go into the classroom. And the supplementary materials are not vetted before they go into the classroom. So at least that's what I gathered. So, and that created kind of what I thought would be a loophole for materials to get into the classroom without having some sort of vetting process or something like that. So I would encourage the board, of course, not to do that, especially today's political climate. And with the topic as it is out in the public, more vetting would probably be better than less vetting, I would imagine. And I would think that anybody watching, if you have a kid in the Montgomery County Schools, if you want to see whatever curriculum they're using, if you just walk up to your teacher, your student's teacher, I would imagine they would be more than willing to show you whether it be a primary material or a supplementary material, that they would be more than willing to show you those. So, and then if not, then there might be an issue. And if that is the case, then we probably don't need that teacher in the classroom if they don't want to share what they're teaching to their kids. So we definitely don't want activists in there teaching our kids, no matter which side they're on. So anyway, I just wanted to address the policy that you guys might be discussing tonight. I'm sure you probably will be, but I would encourage the board, at least from my standpoint, to have more vetting or at least have more parental involvement in the material before it goes in the classroom. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Bowman. And next up, we have, I just closed up my, Cassidy, is Cassidy Ackerman Garvin, and after Cassidy is Crow Sindelar.
My name is Cassidy Ackerman Garvin, and I am from Blacksburg High School. I implore you to reject the model policies regarding trans students. These are responses to a survey that I ran about students' experiences with transphobia in the schools and their opinions on the policies. So these are all quotes from students that I've compiled. I had a class where a group of students would make transphobic jokes and the teacher would join in as well. I cannot tell you how many slurs I have been called here. I have had things thrown at me in the halls and been pushed around by people much larger than me. I've witnessed students getting verbally harassed, laughed at, and made fun of, or even instances of physical harm, like trying to pull someone down the stairs. A lot of times when groups are sectioned off, it's boys and girls, which outs people like me to some of the male students that are very toxic. I haven't transitioned yet, so my name in the system is my dead name. But every year on the first day of school, I tell teachers my name. I am already afraid to correct people and tell them my pronouns because I don't look trans. I can't wear a binder due to my scoliosis. I wait until I find a teacher who lets me use the teacher's bathroom because there isn't a gender-neutral bathroom other than the nurse's bathroom, or wait until I get home to use the bathroom. Being called my preferred name in school is one of the only things keeping me here. It physically stings when people call me my dead name. I don't want my friends to die. I just know if this goes through, someone is going to kill themselves. I'm not ready for that because it could be someone you know. I'm worried about how people will be treated when they have to use the restroom that corresponds with their birth sex. I think that these policies are going to expose a lot of students that already have anxiety to a world of harassment and hate. My thoughts on these policies are that they are inhumane. Trans students are already a minority and have high suicide rates, so this just gave my friends and possibly myself the push we needed to try and hurt ourselves even more. I know people who have just gotten their names changed in the school system. If these are enacted, that will be rolled back. If you asked me to describe how I feel about the model policies in one word, I can't. I've gone on whole rants about how horrendous these policies are and the effects they will have on the mental health of queer students. The teachers who would call me by my dead name and use the wrong pronouns, which would make me feel confused. I think people would treat me differently. I'm worried that certain students that don't want to be outed would be outed. That wouldn't be good for their mental health. I am worried that people would out me to the wrong people. My day would be filled with awful stares and slurs. I just want people to be people without being worried about what others think. I'm nervous about what my name in the yearbook and on my diploma is going to be. While my parents are supportive, I've already filled out college forms with my dead name. I'm dreading getting a diploma with my dead name on it, a name that simply feels wrong and dishonest. Those whom I trust, such as my teachers, will be required to dead name and misgender me, which will make me feel less safe trying to find time to ask questions about topics that confuse me when it comes to schoolwork, which will negatively impact my performance at school. I'm really worried for students without supportive parents who no longer have the choice to come out safely in school. Thank you.
Thank you, Cassidy. Next is Crow Sindelar, and after Crow is Don Upham.
Good evening. My name is Crow Sindelar, and I live in Blacksburg. I am here again to denounce Governor Youngkin's model policy on trans students and to ask you not to adopt it for Montgomery County. I, like millions of adolescents around the world, identify under the transgender umbrella. The definition of transgender is this: a person who does not identify with their assigned gender. That is the only criterion for being trans. I am trans. Many of my friends and classmates are trans. Recent estimates show that there are over 300,000 trans adolescents in the United States. For perspective, the population of Orlando, Florida is 309,000. Extensive research has been conducted on the idea of a person's gender identity not aligning with their physical characteristics or chromosomes, though these markers are scientifically questionable. Did you know that many people have chromosomes other than XX and XY? These individuals are intersex, neither biologically male nor female. They comprise 2% of the population and are as common as redheads. Cultures all over the world have accepted and celebrated their trans members for millennia. Examples include the Hijra of India, the Kanith of the Arabian Peninsula, the Mudoko Dako of Uganda, and the over 100 different gender expressions in Native American cultures. Biological research has shown that transgenderism is visibly valid in our brains. Brain scans of trans men are more like those of cisgender men than cis women, and the opposite is true for trans women. We exist, we are valid. You say that diversity is one of our greatest strengths, along with inclusion and equity. You say that every student deserves an advocate. We have been forced to become our own advocates, so listen to our message. Now I will share some statistics on the mental health of trans children like me from the Trevor Project. 53% of trans and non-binary youth seriously considered suicide last year. 17% of them, 1 in 5, attempted it. Less than 33% of trans youth have gender-affirming homes. 71% have faced discrimination due to their gender identity. Over 75% of trans youth experience symptoms of anxiety, and 66% experience symptoms of depression. These rates, suicide, anxiety, and depression, all lower significantly when schools accept and accommodate our gender identity. The simple truth is that when our identities are respected, we live. I don't want to watch my friends suffer under a policy that grants malicious permission to invalidate us. I don't want to watch my friends' mental health decline because they have no safe place to go. I don't want to watch my friends die because of Governor Youngkin's proposed model policy. Believe me when I say that we will lose so many bright minds because of this bigotry, this bias, this hate. Oppose the model policy. Do not let the students you serve in Montgomery County suffer. Don't let us die. Thank you.
Thank you, Crow. Next up, we have Don Upham, and after Don, we have Jeff Fahrenkopf.
Good evening, board members and superintendent. My name is Don Upham. I live in Reiner. As a Christian, I'm directed by the Bible to pray for all people and to ask God to help them, to intercede on their behalf, and to give thanks for them. I am to pray this way for kings and for all who are in authority, so that we can all live peaceful and quiet lives marked by godliness and dignity. I recognize that you board members face many difficult decisions regarding curriculum, budgets, staffing, facility maintenance, and policy. I recognize that some of these issues are divisive, as are many issues in our daily lives in this day, and as was the case with the people Moses led out of Egypt. As they neared the end of their 40 years of wandering in the wilderness, Moses instructed half of the leaders to go to the top of Mount Gerizim, the name of which means hatchet, or to cut in half, or to divide. And they were to speak over the people blessings. The other half of the leaders went to go to the top of Mount Ebal, which meant ancient heap, and speak out the curses that would follow those who strayed from following God's commandments. So tonight I pray, thanking for each of you, and for godly wisdom to be poured out on each of you to handle the business and issues before the school system and to discern God-given guidance in each of these decisions. As was spoken from Mount Gerizim, now it shall be that if you diligently obey the Lord your God, being careful to do all his commandments which he has commanded you, the Lord your God will set you high above all the nations of the earth, and all these blessings will come upon you and overtake you if you obey the Lord your God. Blessed shall you be in the city, and blessed shall you be in the county. Blessed shall be the offspring of your body, and the produce of your ground, and the offspring of your beasts, and the increase of your herd, and the young of your flock. Blessed be your basket and your kneading bowl. Blessed shall you be when you come in, and blessed shall you be when you go out. And the Lord will command the blessing upon you and your barns, and in all that you put your hand to. And he will bless you in the land which the Lord your God gives you. I pray that you would not refuse to listen to the Lord your God and obey his commandments and decrees, and thus be overwhelmed by the curses spoken from Mount Ebal and documented in the 28th chapter of Deuteronomy in the Bible, even as some of these curses we are seeing manifested in our nation in this day. This I pray in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Upham. Next, we have Jeff Fahrenkopf, and after Jeff Fahrenkopf, Mike Goodhart.
Thank you. I wish to address the Virginia Department of Education model policies. Last time I was here, I spoke about Governor Northam's 2021 model policy for the treatment of transgender students in Virginia's public school system. Since then, Governor Youngkin's DOE has released the 2022 model policies on the dignity and respect for all students and parents in Virginia public schools to supersede the previous. I wish to address the misinformation presented at the last public address on October 18th and what I'm hearing this evening. First off, I have read both policies. I have them in front of me. I've read them in detail and supporting documents. Governor Youngkin's policy simply inserts parents back into the equation of upbringing and education of their children supported by the 14th Amendment and Code of Virginia 1240.1, with nothing hidden from the parents. This policy does not prevent transgender students from being supported by the school system. It states, schools shall serve the needs of all students. Schools should attempt to accommodate students with distinctive needs, including any student with a persistent and sincere belief that his or her gender differs from his or her sex. A team of appropriate school staff and other caregivers should collaborate with the parents to identify and implement reasonable accommodations and modifications. Single-user bathrooms and facilities should be made available in accessible areas, indicating accessibility for all the students. Dignity and respect for all students and parents is its focus. One policy, weighty and onerous, with its transgender pursuit even to children as young as kindergarten, seeking to help a few students, will lead to collapse and abuse of the many. This is called tyranny of the minority. Governor Northam's policy opens Pandora's box, and you will not be able to contain its consequences. Whereas Governor Youngkin's policy collaborates parents and educators to solve the problems. Governor Northam's policy is not a solution to bullying. It will exacerbate it. Please consider that the solution to bullying and help for transgender students is to reintroduce discipline with enforcement and respect into the classroom, halls, and all events. Give teachers the rights to enforce discipline, take appropriate, sharp action on bullying, and involve the parent. If you continue to go down the paths like Governor Northam's model policy, then parents and guardians will have no choice but to employ free market solutions and go after school choice. The money will eventually follow the students, and the public school system will collapse under its own weight. I would ask if you would embrace Governor Northam's 2022 model policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fahrenkopf. Next, we have Mike Goodart. Did I get it right? Okay. And I lost my page, so I'll let you know who's on deck later.
It's Mike Goodhart.
Bob Beard, you're on deck.
Thank y'all for your service to Montgomery County Public Schools. I just have some concerns. And some of my concerns are probably coming from Biden signing this executive order, which has opened up all this stuff that I'm just concerned. Well, maybe I'm just a grandfather concerned for his granddaughters. Okay, I'm going to read you my first concern. Transgender guys should not use girls' restrooms or locker rooms. We need to respect girls' rights to privacy and safety, and a school board should make decisions that support this. You know, we got to get real here. There's 6,500 genetic differences between a man and woman. Two of those differences are men have 19% more bone density and have bigger muscle fibers. You know, a man can overpower a woman. And I just don't see how you can trust every guy that's going into a girl's bathroom. I just think it's foolishness. Here's a case where a kid went in and he dressed in a skirt, went in there and sexually assaulted a girl in a bathroom. Okay. I would also like to address one other thing. I just don't see that men should be able to compete against women in sports. I mean, men have a lot of physical advantages. I was looking at this college swimmer, and he's 6'4", and he's competing against this girl in the NCAA tournament, and she's 5'7". You know, why don't women have a right for it to be a fair playing field? You know, just fairness. That's another concern of mine. I just don't think transgender guys should be competing against girls in sports. I just don't see it. They have too much of an advantage. I just heard about a case where this high school player is playing against girls. He's a transgender guy, and he hits the volleyball so hard he hurts this girl, and they think she got a concussion from it. You know, I mean, some of the stuff's out of control. But anyway, okay, those are two of my concerns right there. Also, one thing I'd like to read.
Mr. Goodhart, your time is up. I'm sorry.
My time's up. Okay. Well, last thing I'd like to say
No,
is.
Mr. Goodhart, your time is up. I'm sorry.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Beard.
Good evening. Hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Bob Beard. I live here in Christiansburg. I saw on the agenda tonight where we're talking about an update on CHS. So I hope there's an update on why CHS costs 3 times more than the Salem High School renovation. You know, 35 million versus 95 million. I've been trying to talk to my neighbors, some people I meet at the dog park, friends at church, neighbors at, just people at the grocery store. And overwhelmingly, 9 out of 10 adults I've spoken with oppose having open shared bathrooms at Christiansburg High School. That is just BS. There's also teaching 10-year-olds 5 different ways to have sex in health class. That doesn't sound too well either. And the need for MCPS to create new policies for explicit sexual content in classroom. That's just crazy. All right, well, I also, we talk about the Dialogue race. I went to the Dialogue race as well. And my table was a little bit different than what's been shared. The things that we talked about was the scoring trends and how they've been declining. And that recent report just proved it again, that the Virginia just keeps falling in the SL scores and budgets keep on increasing. So there's no accountability. We talked about the inequities at EMS and ASH and versus Blacksburg and Christiansburg on socioeconomic class size and all those different things. So there's lots of different ways to address the things that are going on in the school system and not spend so much money. But I want to talk about positive. So this past Saturday night was one of the coolest nights I've had in a long time. I want to talk about some local leaders. The ladies I like to talk about, both the leaders are Americans. They're all Americans. They are women. They are moms, and they are Black. Okay. Well, and I think you'll find when I mention these names, you'll see that it's going to be about faith versus fear, exceptionalism versus victimization. Saturday night we had a lady who was the lieutenant governor for our state. She won this county by 5,000 votes. By 5%, by 5%. And yet she's a Black woman. She works in Richmond, the former Confederate capital of the Confederacy. And she's in Richmond. So I'm not sure where racism falls into place here. When Winsome Sears is the Black woman, the second highest elected official in our state, and she's in Richmond, and I'm sure some people will be turning over their graves. So I just think we all need to think about what's going on and really what's important here, and that is exceptionalism. Teach people how to work and give everybody the opportunity to excel and not to be victims. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Beard. Next up, we have Chris Obenshane. Is Mr. Obenshane here? Oh, there you are. Sorry, I didn't tell you were on deck. But on deck is Catherine Kincaid.
Good evening. My name is Chris Obenshane. I'm a parent of 2 children, and I live in Blacksburg. I'm here tonight to speak in support of Governor Youngkin's policies and the Department of Education's policies on transgender students. I want to talk about these policies. I believe that as a parent that these are common sense policies. I've read these policies. These policies address the protection of students, and they ensure parental rights are protected as well. I've noticed in several of the recent board meetings, and even again here tonight, that most of the comments by those who oppose these policies are simply repeating things that other people say about the policies, rather than saying anything about what's in the policies themselves. I find that interesting. I also would note that I've heard this board talk about before the fact that this board is nonpartisan, but actions speak louder than words. And I think if you look at some of the actions this board has taken, some of them look to us as parents very partisan. What I'm referring to is that when Governor Northam was governor, his Department of Education put forth model policies that were adopted very swiftly by this board. And in fact, it's interesting that this board and this county was one of only 13 localities in the entire state that adopted those policies. Only 10% of localities adopted Governor Northam's proposed policies. Now you contrast that to the policies that were set forth by the Department of Education when Governor Youngkin was elected regarding voluntary masking in schools. And unfortunately, it took many parents like myself and others coming and begging this board to change those policies and comply with what the governor's office had proposed, simply to allow parents to make the decision. I hope that this board will act swiftly as it did when Governor Northam's policies were enacted. I hope this board will act just as swiftly once Governor Youngkin's new policies are finalized. I understand they're still under review, but they will be finalized soon, and I hope this board will act swiftly, although I'm not holding my breath. We shouldn't have to come and ask this board simply to acknowledge simple truths like there are two genders, male and female. Simple truths like boys don't belong in girls' locker rooms or restrooms. Simple truths like parents should have the final say in decisions about the health and education of their children, and that teachers and administrators should not be keeping secrets from parents. Those are things that the vast majority, those simple truths are things that the vast majority of parents agree with. And I would ask you to think about that as you make your decisions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Obenshain. Next up, we have Catherine Kincaid, and after Catherine Kincaid, Anna Vijayan.
Well, I really don't have a lot to say tonight. I have been very busy today and really didn't have time to prepare something. And I think what Chris just said and some of the others, the things that they have said are excellent. And I would just like to say to every board member, we're watching. I don't want to be here tonight. Most of the others don't want to be here tonight. But we feel compelled to be here. And we're not going to stop. We're going to keep coming. And I don't care what party you're in, if you don't do what's right for our children, and you know what that is. We've said the same things every time, just about. You know what's right. If you don't do that, we're going to replace you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kincaid.
Ms. Cass.
Are we at 30 minutes?
We are.
Okay. So, board members, Ms. Drake has indicated that 30 minutes has passed. Does anyone wish to make a motion to extend public address by an additional 30 minutes?
Second.
Do you have a second?
Second.
Ms. Bond, second. Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin? Yes. Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson? Yes. Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion passes. Thank you. We will continue with public address. The next speaker is Anna Vijayan, and after Ms. Vijayan is Bob Barbetti.
Hi, my name is Anna Vijayan, and I live in District A. I'm here today to ask that you include funding in next year's budget to restore the 2.5 gifted staff positions that were lost over a decade ago due to the recession. Other positions that were lost were soon reinstated, but the gifted positions were not. My guess is that in your minds, other issues take precedence over the needs of gifted students. But these students have been waiting 10 years for your attention, and gifted staff have been waiting 10 years for relief from their impossibly crazy schedules. And now is the time to turn your attention to their needs. 8 out of the 10 gifted staff members split their time between campuses. These teachers work so hard to provide students with the challenges that they need to stay engaged and learning, but they just don't have the hours in the day to deliver everything that's needed to every student. There is real inequity here. Some students get 2 hours of pull-out time per week, while others get 3 times that. If additional GRTs could be hired, these inconsistencies could largely be solved. In addition, more GRTs would allow for more collaborative planning and teaching time. Collaborative planning is key to the gifted program. This is the time when gifted resource teachers and classroom teachers plan differentiation so that gifted students can be challenged at the appropriate level in their classroom work. I'm going to talk a little bit about my son's experience at MCPS. He had a very tough time in first grade. He complained that it was boring, and he begged not to go every day. The only day of the week when it was not a huge struggle to get him out the door was the day when he had his 1 hour of pull-out time with his gifted teacher. He had 1 hour per week in that year. In the classroom, even after acing the math pretest, he often did exactly the same work as the other students. He thought that he hated math, and he started to avoid doing the work and fooling around. Now he's in 4th grade. He now gets to spend at least 3 hours per week in pull-out time with his GRT. And in math, he gets to work on alternative challenging assignments, and he works diligently on them. He now says that math is one of his favorite subjects. My point is that when students get enough time with their gifted teachers, and when gifted and classroom teachers have enough time together to plan classroom activities that provide the appropriate level of challenge for gifted students, it makes a real difference in students' lives. In fact, like for my son, it means the difference between hating school and loving school. Please make sure that every gifted student is provided with the same educational opportunities as my son is lucky enough to experience this year. Please adequately fund the gifted program so that the GRT positions that were cut a decade ago can be restored. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vijayan. Next, we have Bob Barbetti, and the last person on the list is Joanne Price.
Bob Barbetti, Reiner. I have no doubt of your honorable and self-sacrificing intentions when you chose to serve on the MCPS board. We should all respect you for serving where we were not willing or able. Once you joined this board, your identity was no longer just yours. It became a part of the board, the public school system, and education overall. Everyone but your family and close friends knows you primarily by these public associations. To most people, you are the system, and the system is you. Let's look at your public identity today through some generalizations, more true than not. To many school employees, you do not listen well and respond to their needs, so much that their only remedy is to form a union and legally negotiate with you. To the Board of Supervisors, you manage a bottomless fund into which most of the county tax revenues and capital funds go, and sometimes appear unsure of where funds have gone. To many parents and other citizens, you are responsible for recently identified loss of learning caused by school closure, indoctrination over education, and focus on social justice. Regardless of local reality, the public education system has been branded this way. To some parents and citizens, you are authorizing the sexual and racial indoctrination of our children. To the U.S. and Virginia Departments of Education, you are the key people that can bribe and coerce to politically control public education. To the growing numbers of county citizens following the board meetings, you may be the board soon agreeing to a public school union before many legal and operational considerations have been adequately considered. You may be the board which has not approved a plan for addressing the loss of learning. You may be the board which has discussed social justice issues, such as pride flags, more than normal education. You may be the board which has been less transparent with certain supplemental fund appropriations and the hiring of the new superintendent. You may be the board which is constantly reacting to the problem of the day rather than leading MCPS. In contrast, I see you as dedicated citizens striving to make education work well when conflicting priorities from social, political, and legal perspectives seem to restrict your authority. Overall, these are hard words to hear and consider. You're not any of these things, you may say, but others' perceptions are not yours to determine. The only advice I can offer is to consider the best values of mankind and strive to live in that way, always trying to do what is right. I find those values are conveniently found in God's Word. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barbetti. And next, we have Joanne Price. And she is not here. So, okay. We are done with public address, and we will now move on to consent items. If no one wishes to move an item out of consent, we will consider these items approved. Do I have a motion to approve the payment of bills as presented?
So moved. Second.
I have a second. Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Yes.
Franklin? Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion passes. And next, we'll move on to the business meeting. First, we're going to talk about the board retreat review. And board members, I also ask you to chime in on anything you might want to add. We did have an opportunity to meet as a board last weekend. We had a couple people from the public attend also. We also were thankful to have Dr. Bragan visit with us and spend the time with us, and we had an opportunity to get to know him a bit better. One of the things that we did talk about were his superintendent goals, what he would like to achieve, and what he asked us what we would like to achieve over the next few years. In addition, we talked about parliamentary procedure, and from that came our thank you, Brenda, for our cheat sheets. We are going to try hard to follow parliamentary procedure, and we can, when I finish here, we can talk about whether we want to make a motion about limiting discussion of agenda items as we discussed. And then we also talked about collective bargaining and the English Language Arts program, as well as some of the other government policies that have recently come down. Is there anything anybody else would like to add as to what we discussed or want to mention anything about the retreat?
I would just like to thank Ms. Drake for the wonderful lesson with the trail mix. That's how we practiced our parliamentary procedure. We all kind of know what we're supposed to do, but sometimes you get up here and you forget and you think, oh, maybe I shouldn't. And we had that was a lot of fun, and it was a great learning tool. So thank you so much.
Yes, that was a fun, actually we have some of the trail mixes right here in front of us.
Chair
So-
Cass, I have a comment, if you don't
Yes,
mind.
go ahead.
So I would like to thank my fellow school board members and the Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Whitaker, for being able to be in attendance, and of course Brenda, for everything you do in running the meeting and everything you took care of. But mostly, I want to thank my fellow school board members for the conversation, for the openness, for the collaboration that we were able to have in 2 days. I think it's pertinent and very important that we continue these types of things, and I think it helps us do our job better, and it helps us find out what our strengths and what our weaknesses are, and just helps us work better with our own constituents and our districts and our school system as a whole. So I know it took time away from families and some people jobs and other things like that, but just thank you each for taking time out of your busy schedule to attend. It was much appreciated.
Thank you, Dina. Anybody else? Ooh, yeah. Yeah, you got a special one. I think his is, yeah, his is flashing red lights. I don't think yours is working. You're loud.
I was just going to echo that. It was great spending time with my fellow board members. First time I've done a retreat like that. It was great spending time with you all. It was great spending time with our incoming superintendent as well, get his perspective on things. Yeah, and look forward to continuing to build upon those relationships. And again, a big props to Mr. Drake for coordinating all that, and the trail mix was delicious.
Anybody else? Ms. Franklin?
So I'll just echo what everyone else has said. And now you guys get it when I say what we've been doing has not been a retreat.
Yes, you're right. Does anybody want to make a motion about, I can't make a motion, so. We talked about the possibility of, it was limiting discussion on agenda items to 3 minutes per time with each person speaking twice. Do we
I'll
want to?
most definitely make a motion that we follow through with what we discussed and allowing each person 3 minutes twice. Is that correct? Am I
Each
remembering?
person goes once, and then if they want to go another time, they get another 3. And I will make sure everybody has an opportunity. If they want to speak, they're not required, but if they want to speak, they would speak.
Second.
Can you put all that into one sentence, Ms. Drake?
The motion as it reads is to allow each board member 3 minutes twice during discussion of agenda items.
Okay, I have a motion. So do I have a second?
I'm sorry, could I suggest an amendment? Allowing each board member 3 minutes, and I'm not sure how to properly say this, Ms. Drake, but after all board members have had a chance the first time around, then a second time.
I think that's what.
Does it say that?
I guess it doesn't exactly say that. So it's allow each board member 3 minutes, and then after everyone has had an opportunity to speak, they can get another 3 minutes.
Right, and I apologize, that's what I meant. It just didn't
No, it's
come across
okay. I
that
just
way.
wanted to have some clarification on it. Thank you. But you guys have to,
So
you
what-
guys have to accept the.
No, if that's what she meant, then.
That's what she meant.
Oh,
So we'll
you
just.
accepted it.
That's what she
Okay,
meant.
sorry.
It says it didn't get worded that way. So Ms. Drake, do you want to reword that for us?
Currently, allow each board member 3 minutes twice during discussion of agenda items, with the second time occurring after each board member has the opportunity to speak.
Okay, that works. Okay. Do I have a second?
Ms. Franklin seconded.
Yeah.
And accepted the amendment, I believe.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Can I have a roll call, please?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion passes. I got to get my stopwatch out.
There were volunteers to do that.
It's okay. I got to watch. I got a stopwatch. Okay. Next, Dr. Whitaker, the proposal to pilot full-time bus driver positions?
Absolutely. First, while they're walking up, I would like to recognize that Dr. Amanda Widener, who just defended her dissertation last Friday.
Congratulations, Dr.
That is an amazing accomplishment. We are so proud of you. Dr. Widener, I'm so sorry, my brain is off track. And Mr. Walters are here to explain and provide for you all a proposal to pilot some full-time bus driver positions. And so they're here to share that with you and address any questions you may have.
Yeah, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Whitaker. Mr. Walters and I are here tonight because we have a proposal to pilot some full-time bus driver positions for Montgomery County. This is in response to needs to support our transportation department, most notably our ongoing critical bus driver shortage. I think you are aware of the challenge. I know Dr. Whitaker has referenced it in previous meetings as well as other members of the transportation department. But we still currently have 7 unfilled bus driver positions. This is something we've been dealing with all year. It was also a problem that existed last year. In addition to those 7 unfilled positions, I also want to make you aware that we have 3 positions that are deferred, meaning that Mr. Walters, in an effort to address the shortage, consolidated 2 routes last year and then a 3rd route this year. And so that's meant that on some routes there are additional students. So because of these shortages, on a regular basis, the transportation department relies on substitute bus drivers. On any given day, there is a minimum of 7 open positions that need to be filled. And that doesn't take into account that bus drivers are like any other employee, and from time to time, they're going to call in sick, they're going to be out with medical needs, they're going to be out on personal leave. So we can have up to 10 positions that need to be filled, which means they're relying on substitute bus drivers on a daily basis, but they're also having to tap into using their technicians who are supposed to be working in the garage. And I think Mr. Walters has spoken to you before about, our 7 technicians are driving buses almost on a daily basis, and that's taking them away from their time working in the garage, repairing buses and doing maintenance on them. And there are even days when both the supervisor and the director of transportation are driving buses. Dr. Whitaker has also addressed with you that this is impacting some of our field trips, because we have to give priority to getting kids to school and then getting them home in the afternoon. And so sometimes that does jeopardize field trips and athletic trips that take place because of the need for drivers to ensure that our regular routes are covered each day. So our proposal is that we look at converting these 10 unfilled positions, the 7 unfilled I mentioned, plus the 3 deferred positions, to full-time positions. So our current bus driver positions are approximately 4.5 hours a day, so they are not considered full-time. They do not come with health insurance. We would like to convert 10 of those positions so that they are 6.5 hours a day, and that would provide the added benefit of health insurance. Now, we know that a lot of our current drivers want a part-time position. We have many drivers, for example, who are retired, and they're not looking for a full-time position. So they're satisfied working a part-time position, and they don't need health insurance. We do have some bus drivers who, because they are driving additional hours, already qualify for health insurance. But we would like to pilot an effort to introduce 10 6.5-hour positions, hoping that that may attract more applicants. We've done a lot of things recently to try to attract applicants. We've had at least 6 job fairs since the summer. I communicate with Mr. Walters almost on a daily basis. Anytime there's a potential applicant, he's calling those people. Ms. Drake and Ms. Wood communicate with us on a regular basis about using social media and advertising. So we've tried a lot of things to attract more applicants, but we're not getting them. And so we're hoping that by providing some full-time positions that would come with health insurance, that we may attract some people who would be interested in those extra hours, as well as the opportunity for health insurance. Our current drivers could apply for those positions, but again, we would be reserving these positions for those harder to fill routes, those routes that right now we really don't have applicants for. So what would a 6.5-hour day look like for a bus driver? So approximately 4.5 to 5 hours of their day would be either preparing or driving their routes. The remainder of that time, they would spend an hour in the garage daily. And so they would be doing important tasks like cleaning and fueling our spare buses, washing buses when they come in for service, washing our county fleet vehicles. And this would be beneficial because it would free up our technicians and allow them hopefully more opportunity to actually work on repairing and maintaining our buses. The other time, they would each spend 10 hours a month as trip drivers. So when there is a need for a field trip or an event, extracurricular or athletic event after school, they would spend 10 hours a month doing that. And we're hoping that that would also minimize this increasing need we've had recently for trip drivers. Of course, the big question is, what is the cost associated with this? So if we had 10 employees who were eligible and took the health insurance, that's about $9,000 an employee, so we're looking at a cost of around $90,000. And in our communication and work with finance, we have learned that we are saving money each month through all these unfilled positions. So we believe that from those savings, we do have the funds to cover this added expense. And so again, we are proposing to pilot this now, advertise these positions, see if we can fill them. We'd like to come back to you sometime at the start of the next semester to give you an update on how it's going and make our recommendation on whether or not this should become a permanent change for next year's budget, and even if it's something that we could expand. But again, we think that by creating some full-time bus driver positions, that this may create an opportunity for us to have more applicants and bring people in who can drive our buses and help us fulfill an essential service to our children, which is getting them to school.
Thoughts from the board? Jamie, do you have anything?
think it's something we're going to have to do. I don't think we have much of a choice. I think that it's got to a point where we're desperate. And, you know, I personally would like to see us put some, because I've spoke with bus drivers this week, and I do think that that is part of the issue, but I also think discipline is part of the issue. In fact, I think it's a whole lot of the issue. And, you know, I think that's why people don't want to apply. They don't want to deal with what's happening, and they don't want to deal with, frankly, what some parents are getting on buses and saying to our bus drivers and students as well. So I would like to see this, but I also would like to see us make some kind of decisions on what we can do for disciplinary actions for students that are just not behaving on our buses.
Ms. Bonnet, that is an excellent point, and it is absolutely, you know, when I'm speaking with bus drivers, those are the two things that I hear. I actually had two individuals make an appointment with me recently to share, you know, because I went and spoke with our team and said, hey, bring your ideas, because we are trying and, you know, it's not working. And those are consistently the top two things, benefits and then student behavior. So while we are working on looking at the benefits, I do want to let you know the other work on behavior is being done as well. So Eddie and Rob have been, or Dr. Johnson, sorry, have been working together to create what is being called our bus discipline matrix, so that we can help to identify behaviors that should be bus managed, what should be done. Sometimes things aren't getting to our schools, so when to refer, because I think sometimes bus drivers feel like maybe they're not referring behavior that they should be refer. So we want to be very clear about what that is so that we clearly communicate it. So they work together to develop that, and Eddie's actually shared it with a bus driver from each of our communities to get feedback, and then we're going to be meeting with them again next Tuesday to talk about the bus discipline matrix. So we are trying to look at it from both ends, and you know, I think as Ms. Franklin said at the last meeting, as much as we can get our parents to help with that component and speak with their children about what's happening on the bus and be understanding when we call home with a bus concern, you know, we need that support and greatly appreciate it, because it is very difficult to manage, you know, 50 children that you can't turn around and speak to. Sometimes I have a hard time just with 2 children of my own in the car, but imagining, you know, that many, I think it is an absolute need. And so I appreciate the collaboration of our departments in working to address this, and we will bring that feedback back to you too, once we put that matrix into place, and let you know how that's going.
Any other comments? Dana?
I just want to say thank you for that, because I was going to echo that. I know a lot of bus drivers and have had a lot come to me with those concerns. And I do think that while the health insurance is beneficial and would help, I know that even with the bus drivers now that maybe, like you said, want to do part-time and don't technically need the health insurance, there are issues with all the bus drivers as far as discipline, and we have got to get a grasp on that, because if we don't, we are going to be in a world of hurt. So to see that being incorporated and maybe come into some type of policy would be very beneficial and very nice, and hopefully that would regain some of our bus drivers, some of our employees, and make them feel more safe. Because I'll be honest, if I was a bus driver and I had to deal with 1 or 2 kids causing a thing on the bus, you're not just dealing with those kids, you're responsible for every child on that bus, and that's a huge liability to Montgomery County Public Schools. So, you know, in my mind, discipline and safety are foremost of most importance, as well as the health insurance too, but we've got to get a grasp on the discipline and the safety of our kids, front and foremost.
Thank you, Dana. Marty?
Can I go ahead and make an motion?
See if anybody else has any other comments.
And then we can still do discussion.
Yeah, if you want to make a motion and then we can have more discussion, that's fine.
I motion to approve the conversion of 10 bus driver positions from part-time to 6.5-hour full-time positions.
Do I have a second on the motion? Okay, we have a second. Discussion? Ms. Franklin?
Yes, so I have a question concerning the 10-hour a month with the field trips and athletics trips. So that would be calculated as overtime, or how would that be working?
So that would help make up their 6 hours a day.
So they would be at a total of 30.5 hours per week, is that where we are? So it would not be considered overtime because they haven't reached,
40.
that full work hours, but it is to ensure that they have some, that we can get them there for the insurance. And then the other side is, we are currently paying that, right? Because we're having somebody drive those routes. So it meets two needs. One, ensuring we have more drivers. If they were to drive additional routes that put them over, then that is when they would go to time and a half.
Okay. And I would just like to say thank you for looking outside of the box. Again, our HR department, with all of our staffing, has just been going above and beyond this year to try to make sure that our schools are staffed from top to bottom. And this is a critical one. So I would hope when we do make a final decision as to how this is going to work, is that we make it very public, so everyone understands this is what is expected on our buses and in our schools. But anyway, thank you.
Yep, Penny literally stole my thinking outside the box quote, but yeah, I was gonna say thank you and great job on this as well. I think it would be easy to just kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again and hoping for more responses, right? But this is a great way to change it up. And again, looking at the, whichever side this is about kind of those extra duties, that they would be expected to do. It's a great use of that extra time, helping out in the garage and stuff. I guess, the only question I kind of had, and this kind of ties into Penny's as well, is like, in terms of the expectations for doing the field trips, I'm still trying to understanding how the current bus drivers, like, would these drivers kind of get priority for doing those field trips since it's kind of expected as a part of this role as opposed to the current bus drivers?
As it stands right now, there are months that we struggle on fulfilling all of our trips with drivers that want to work those extra hours in doing these field trips. So we feel confident that this won't really take away from the drivers that are wanting to do trips. It would be beneficial to us.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Do we have any other discussion? Ms. Drake, could we have a roll, please?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Absolutely, yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion carries. Okay, thank you, Dr. Widener.
All right, and so next we have for you our CHS project update. Mr. Lowe and Mr. Bauer are here to provide an overview of the timeline and updated plans for Christiansburg High School. We are so excited to share this with you this evening. I wish I had one of those party favors that made lots of noise, but.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Whitaker. Thank you for the opportunity to give you this update for Christiansburg High School. So currently status is conception design is practical layout is mostly complete. The architect is currently working on phasing plans with contractor and MCPS staff input. Engineers are currently using these concept plans to design the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing for the additions and renovations. Once these drawings are complete and scheduled for, actually it's November 18th, they will be submitted to the contractor, Branch Associates, and MCPS for staff to review. At this time, Branch will solicit pricing from their subcontractors and provide MCPS with a new guaranteed maximum price for the project. This pricing will determine if additional cuts or value engineering need for the project design must take place, or if MCPS will accept the GMP and proceed with the project. Currently, we are focused on ensuring that the project scope and design revisions are within the MCPS project budget, and the phasing schedule is reasonable, practical, and possible to ensure minimal disturbance to the staff and students at CHS.
While he's switching slides, I did also just want to share that Mr. Jones is here as well, our principal from Christiansburg High School, so he's able to provide feedback as well if you have any questions for him.
So some of the information I want to provide this evening is positive information about some of the square footage increases from existing to proposed. When we talk about cuts, I think a lot of people got the feeling that we were cutting all the good new stuff. So what we want to do is we want to point out a few things, like the science square footage is increasing from the current 6,600 square feet to almost 15,000 square feet, so more than doubling. CTE square footage is increasing from 42,000 square feet to roughly 46,000 square feet. Art is increasing from almost 2,600 square feet to 4,200 square feet. Special ed square footage is increasing from 1,100 square feet to almost 4,000 square feet. Music increasing as well from 4,222 square feet to almost 5,000 square feet. Physical education square footage is increasing from 28,902 square feet to 36,222 square feet. And of course, that is because of an auxiliary gym that is part of the new renovation in addition. The net facility square footage comparison, net is basically your usable space within the facility. And if you have any questions about that, Mr. Bowers can really explain it a lot better than I can. The existing net square footage is about 175,000 square feet, where the proposed net square footage is closer to 196,000 square feet. Facility capacity comparison, existing capacity is currently about 1,200 students, and proposed capacity for functional is about 1,600 students. Some of the other existing versus proposed numbers that you can see is social studies, for instance, with a capacity of 25 students a classroom. We have 7 existing classrooms. We're increasing that to 11 classrooms. Same for math, we're going from 7 to 11. We are adding a math resource room as well. English is going from 8 to 11 classrooms. We're adding an English resource room, also a yearbook room, and an English / theater room, which those 3 rooms do not currently exist in the facility. World language, we're increasing from 3 to 4 world language classrooms, and also adding 3 additional resource rooms that are not there, a marketing lab. Business lab, we are losing 1 business lab, but we are also gaining a business classroom, so it's actually a wash. Some of the other things I wanted to point out was economics lab. We're maintaining the 1 economics lab we have, but we are increasing it by 137 square feet. The cybersecurity lab, we have 1 and we will remain with 1, but we're adding 330 square feet to that space. Biology labs, we're increasing from 2 to 5 labs and adding 2 additional prep rooms. Chemistry labs, we're increasing from 1 lab to 2 labs. And our prep room is increasing by 357 square feet. Physics lab, we have 1, we're going to maintain that 1, but we are adding almost 500 square feet to the physics lab. Prep storage, increasing about 200 square feet to the prep storage for that physics lab. Now the general science labs, you'll see we're going from 3 to 2, and that is basically because we're adding other labs in the chemistry and biology lab and spaces. And we're also increasing the 1 prep storage lab to another 222 square feet. So that's a brief overview of existing to proposed. Mr. Bowers is going to come up and give you a brief presentation and show you some, I guess I call them pretty slides of some ideas for elevations and things like that. But I'm available for any questions you may have.
And we are so excited to share these pictures. We also have our partners from Branch are here with us. I want to recognize them that they're here this evening as well, in case you have any questions from them. But Mr. Bauer, are you ready to show the magic here? We are so excited.
Absolutely. I'm ready to show the pretty slides, if you're ready to receive them. Okay, so how do I go from slide to slide? Okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody. Board, Dr. Whitaker, everybody else in the audience, thank you for being here. And so we're excited to show you the new updated elevations. We're going to talk a little bit about the site plan changes, along with some changes to the floor plans. We're talking about the budget reduction items, kind of an overview, because we're going to go through them as we talk about the plans and then where we are on the project schedule. So we all ready? I promise to keep this under 3 hours, so just don't put the timer on, I promise. Okay. Oh, I already broke it. Okay, so so this first, again, these are the elevations looking, the focus was going to be off of North Franklin and off of Independence. So this is standing with your back to North Franklin. back, kind of your back to the friend school. Independence on your left-hand side, and this is looking towards the front entrance, towards the classroom wing. On the right-hand side, you can see the existing building, so that's CTE is on your right-hand side, and then the addition is in front of you, where you see the C. So material-wise, we're looking at brick and masonry for the exterior veneer, along with a metal panel and insulated metal panel, and then your windows. So you can see so we have a very, very horizontal building. So one of our goals was to try to break that up a little bit, and you can see that with the different colors of the brick and some of the masonry, other masonry materials. So now we're going to go a little bit closer to the building. And so we'll go into the floor plan of what the different spaces are, but this is focusing on the classroom wing. And what you can see is, so where the C is, we're going to go to the right, start at the right and go to the left. So you can see the dark color and light color brick, along with the metal panel, which is that silver color, and then going towards the front elevation. Boy, there's no blue. It's really showing up. Do you guys have screens in front of you? So hopefully you can see the blue. It's kind of whiting out a little bit. Yes, so this space here, I said, if you remember at the last meeting, we had a kind of a generic orangey color. We've now changed that to the navy blue color to be more reflective of your school colors. So now this is staying with your back to Independence, looking at the front elevation. So going from the right to the left, so this is your classroom wing, your two-story classroom wing. This is the lower level here is the administration with your front entrance. On the upper piece here is your student services. This is your media center. Then as we continue to the left, this would be your kind of story and a half cafeteria. And then all the way to the left-hand side is going to be your auxiliary gym on the upper level, and then your kitchen space on the lower level. Yeah, so what we're trying to focus on in Independence is that addition to kind of give the entire building a new facelift. So some things are different from last time. So we try to work in more of the school colors in the design. Again, this is still a draft. You can see some of the logos with Christiansburg logo with the C, along with trying to brighten up the silver, the metal panel, which is going to be more of a silver color, and then the kind of the centerpiece, the front entrance is going to be that dark blue. What you can also see here is the parent drop-off is on the right-hand side, and the bus parking and bus drop-off is on the left-hand side. We'll talk a little bit about that when we get to the site plan. This shot, just getting a little bit closer, so this gives you a little bit better shot of what that front entrance is. So as you're coming up towards the building, what we're proposing is that this entrance right here is going to be both the school time entrance for both car drop-off and for bus drop-off, but also visitors. So you get there and a student arrives late, a parent is there to pick up their child, or you're there to do something else. That this is going to be the same entrance, and also after hours. So if there's an event going on at the gym, at the cafeteria, in your media center, that this would also be your after-hours entrance. We're trying to make that that one entrance is going to be the entrance for all the activities for the school building. This is the media center is on the upper level. You see lots of glass, and then on the left-hand side is your dining room. Okay, so we shift from the elevations. Let's talk about the site plan. So we're going to have a kind of a construction site plan, and then we're going to show you what the final site plan is going to look like. As Dr. Whitaker said, the entire MCPS staff, along with Branch, we've all been working on this for the last couple of months and really developing what is going to be the best plan from the standpoint of functionality for the school division, for the school. I really appreciate all the effort that Mr. Jones has given us to think about how his school is going to operate and try to keep this as stress-less as possible. And then Branch is looking at it from the standpoint of, can we actually do this? What is it going to make? How can we make sure that we get deliveries and there's clear separation from construction to staff and to students? We want to make sure that this is as stress-less of a project as we can possibly make it. So this is Independence going across the bottom, running horizontally. What we're going to have is we're going to have a temporary bus drop-off, which is currently your student lot on your left-hand side. So if you're facing the building, on the left-hand side is kind of your student lot. What we're going to do is we're going to close your current bus drop-off, and we're going to make that the temporary bus drop-off during construction until the point that the new bus loop is created. So that will really be a spring of 23. I know it's hard to believe we're already in November. Can you believe today is November 1st? So when we're looking at spring of '23, that this will be the temporary bus drop-off. The branch will start to map out what that new bus drop-off is going to be for the permanency. And then also, as we get closer to the summertime, we'll actually put fencing up and we'll start preparing for that addition. Additionally, we're going to have a new car loop where the cars will come off of Independence, come down. The students then will go through the CTE space to be able to enter into the building. So we'll still have a clear separation of the cars and the bus drop-off, in the space, and then we'll still have the ability, which is the yellow, for drop-offs for services. To get to your mechanical room, to get to the auditorium, as other spaces. This will be, we're looking at this from a time frame standpoint of spring of '23. This will be then phased throughout the project of as areas are now able to be captured. We're looking at the addition to be completed sometime in the 16 to 18 month time frame from the time that we start construction, and then we'll start to allow other folks to be able to use those spaces for the car and bus drop off. So now looking at the final version. So this is what we're proposing to be the final version as part of the efforts to try to keep our costs down. One of the things we're trying to do is trying to keep all of the construction work and all of the improvements to be on this side of the building. So everything that's happening, we're proposing to happen on the Independence side. What that does, that avoids us doing stormwater improvements and doing other things on the backside towards the development. So everybody who lives on that side of development is going to be super happy because we're going to really keep construction activity to a minimum on that side. So from a final standpoint, we have the bus drop-off. So off of Independence, buses will come in the morning, drop off, students will be able to enter into the front entrance of the building. Buses will then leave. In the afternoon, they will come down Independence. They will park in a Chevron-style parking, which is kind of that angled parking that you see. Car drop-off, parents will come off of Independence, and then drop off here at the same entry point of the building. Again, our goal is just to make that the morning and the afternoon drop off, and then also the point for visitors, and then after hours activities, that everybody's going to that front entrance all the time. And then we are going to lose a little bit of parking here in the front of the building, so we're going to be making up that parking here. And again, with our goal is to try to keep all of the improvements on this side. And again, this helps to keep our costs for construction down, while still allowing in the future that if there is a need to develop the backside of the property, that you still have that available for future development. Okay, so we'll do a brief overview of the plan. So the addition is from this red line coming down, and we'll walk on the addition from right to left. So this is the two-story classroom wing. Again, we're talking now. We are on the first floor plan, so this is ground level. So this is the two-story addition. You can see here in the blue, these are the math classrooms, along with administration, your front entry. So we talked about a little bit earlier, this is where students get dropped off for bus and cars, along with after-hours access to the building. This purple box here is your dining room, and then just to the left is going to be your food court, your kitchen, and all of those spaces. One of the big changes that we made in the plan is that we took the kitchen and the food court out of the existing building, and now we're constructing this as part of the as part of the addition. It did a couple of things for us. One is that de-stressed our timeline from the standpoint of making those improvements on the existing building. So that kind of keeps us out of that space. Also, that allows us to keep the existing kitchen operational without a whole lot of stress. And from a loading dock standpoint, there's actually less travel distance to get from the actual loading dock into the kitchen itself. So there's really, really many benefits that we were able to capture by moving the kitchen and the food court into the addition, as opposed to putting as part of the existing building. So this is your existing auditorium, which is going to receive light renovations. We've moved the economics and marketing labs and all those spaces from the upper level down to the first floor. So that you can see those spaces here. The green is your special education spaces, life skills. This really got the life skills folks really excited. And the reason for that is that now all of those students who may need the most amount of assistance are now on the ground level. So it's going to be the easiest for them to get the students in and out of the building, and everybody's going to be on that same space. You can see that here in the green. And then we'll be making improvements over in your team rooms and your locker rooms. I know you're super excited about the column that's right in the middle of your resting room, but we're gonna go ahead and move that out as part. So we talked about putting mirrors on it, but we're just gonna go ahead and move it out of the middle of the space. So we are gonna make some improvements there, and then your weight room is here in purple. That's gonna be directly adjacent to all those athletic spaces. And then probably one of the biggest exciting improvements that we've been able to make is that we're putting your band and choral and all of your performing arts spaces adjacent to your auditorium. So that's a space here in kind of the salmon pinkish color right here. So here's your auditorium, and then directly adjacent to it is all those spaces. So those are the folks that utilize the auditorium the most, from a performing arts standpoint, and it's directly adjacent. So they're not having to travel all throughout the building to get to those spaces. And one of the things I appreciate that Chris gave us was kind of an update on the square footage. It's not just size that matters, I know, right? It's not just the size that matters, it's also the function and how we're using the space. And what we're able to do with this is we're able to make better improvements on utilization of space, not just making it bigger. Okay, so as we go from, maybe, if I use the right one, there we go.
Josh, if you would you show them where the CI Institute exhibit is?
Oh, yes, ma'am. So this lovely little orange box, which is right here. So one thing that we felt was not quite as awesome in the last round we first did this was, yes, it was directly adjacent to the cafeteria, but as you're walking down the main commons, which is this run right here, it was kind of off to your left. One of the things that we've really been able to do is enhance this, make it much more visible, and celebrate that space better. So you can see right here. So now, as you're walking down that main commons, that is your first eye shot as you're looking down. So that element of celebration. You've got so much great history here it becomes much more prominent. And now, as the students are leaving and go to the classes, it's also something they get to walk by every single day. So we really kind of put that out as a much more major element to the design of the building. Thank you, Dr. Whitaker.
Absolutely. And as he's sharing on the second floor, you'll notice here on the first, but even more so on the second, we've also taken CTE as opposed to being one area of the building, and we have spread those classes out throughout the school so that it is not, students who are taking career and technical education classes are just going to one part of the building. We want those classes to be everywhere throughout the building, and I'm just really excited about that piece of it not being in its own space, but being a part of what is going on throughout the rest of the building.
Examples of that?
Yes, ma'am. So so CTE originally was kind of confined to just this area here. We're now expanding it all the way out into kind of the main commons here. So this is your main walkway in this space here. So as we're looking at drafting and some of the arts, we're starting to make more of these more collaborative as far as CTE and the regular ed spaces.
That's right.
So we're actually growing the CTE out, which is currently really, I don't want to say confined, but it's really kind of focused on this space here. We're growing it all the way out. All the light blue spaces are all CTE spaces along with those classrooms.
That's right. And then on the one before, on the first floor, you can see that the marketing and economics labs are right there in the middle of the building, as well as our cybersecurity being over to the right of where that special education section is. So they'll be on first floor and second floor, spread throughout the building.
So on the second floor, we'll start at the addition. So on the second floor, we have English as far as the dark blue classrooms. Their request was to be adjacent to the media center, and the media center is located right here. If you recall, that we have a 2-story admin guidance or social student services. So on the first floor is going to be your administration and your nurse. On the upper floor with the access via stairs, so within the suite, you can actually go from the stair, go up to the upper level is your student services. So in this, on the addition for the second floor, it says English, your student services, and then your media center, all within this block. This is the second level for your cafeteria, which is located here. And when I say second, it's a 1.5-story volume space. There is no second floor to the cafeteria. And then as we go all the way to the left, this is your auxiliary gym. Some really great things about this is that we were able to expand your current gym So there's going to be 2 coiling doors that are going to give you the ability for it to access. So that way, if there's an event going on, you can easily get from one space to another. They're going to be adjacent to one another and be very friendly for students. Having daughters, one's a senior in high school and one that's graduated that did events, whether it's volleyball or basketball. When you have a wrestling tournament, when you have those events going on, you want to easily be able to get from one gym to another. Well, you can actually stand in one spot and be able to see both activities in both gyms. And so we're increasing this gym is roughly just shy of 10,000 square feet to include both a full court space along with seating and additional storage space, which is one of the things that there's no high school that ever has enough storage space. And so we were able to, as part of this addition, make sure that we have dedicated athletic and phys ed storage space just for the auxiliary gym. So now as we go into the existing building, so you have your auditorium here. We have some student common space here along with some collaboration labs, student lockers. If you recall, in the addition was originally almost all of your science, your world language, English, math was all in the addition. What we were trying to do is we were trying to reduce the size of the addition, reduce the amount of new square footage. So we went back and relooked at everything and say, okay, what can we do to utilize existing square footage better than we did in the first round? So what you can see here is in the green is all your science labs that was spoken about earlier. So this is your physics, your general labs, your chemistry, biology are all in this space here. And then we have world language and social studies are in the, world language is upstairs. But this is your social studies classrooms are here in the dark blue. So again, we just kind of relooked at everything and said, what can we do to better utilize the space and try to get you the number of classrooms. One thing that is important is that in the reductions that we've made, we did not reduce your standard classrooms by 1 classroom. And we also did not reduce them by 1 square foot from the original design. So I just want to make that very clear is that we were as diligent as possible in trying to get us within our budget. Branch, I said, and the entire MCPS team has been wonderful, spending a lot of time listening to me, blah, 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 which I do great. And trying to work with us, trying to figure out what we can do to make this plan more efficient. And then as we look at CTE, some of the goals we're still achieving with CTE, which was one of them is to have the lab space, to create new labs, and also have classrooms directly adjacent to it. And you see that is without exception that we have lab space where we need to have a separate lab, and then which is the light blue, and then directly adjacent to that is the dark space, which is the dark blue, which is classrooms. So again, without exception, where we need to have a separate lab in a classroom, we have that. And some labs actually have 2 classrooms that are designed for it. Culinary arts is an example. Another one is I think cosmetology is another one. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. Part of the reason why this is such a success is thanks to your director of CTE. He does a fantastic job for you and is a huge advocate for making this. So, Mr. Husband, again, thank you for all the work that you do, because the success of these labs are going to be really because of how hard he fights for these labs. The challenge is, as we're going through phasing, is to make sure that the labs are always operational. Again, I want to say thanks to Branch for working with us, and we have been just go through the phasing plan, go through it again to make sure those labs are going to be operational and we're not going to have downtime for those students. So if it's auto mechanics, cosmetology, our plan right now is to not have any time where those labs are down. They may not have a classroom, for a brief period of time, but the labs are always going to be operational all throughout the project. And what that means is we're going to be stretching it over a couple summers, but I believe that we have a really solid plan that we're moving forward with. And then we have, additionally we have drafting and art. Drafting is particularly one of my favorite spaces. So, with art and drafting here in this space. Some important things is that we have daylight in almost all of the classrooms. There's few exceptions to that. Some things that we're also trying to do is if we can't have a actual window, we're trying to create a solar tube which allows daylight in the space. So we're working on that to try to make sure that every classroom has some form of daylight. It may not have a window, but the majority of classrooms, I would say somewhere in the 85 to 90% of the classrooms have daylight, which is better because I think you have 3 now that have actual daylight in it. And then one thing I do want to point out is that on the mezzanine. So has everybody been to the library, to the media center that currently exists? So you know there's that walkway around the top. So originally our plan was to make that go away. And so as we reevaluated that, instead of making it go away, we're actually going to infill the area of that and create 4 world language classrooms are actually going to be up in that space. We already have an elevator. We're going to put a potty up there so that way you don't have to travel downstairs to go to the bathroom. I could say potty, it's okay. And so we're, instead of demoing it and spend the money, we're actually going to do an infill, and we think it's going to be a fantastic space. So before I go on, is there any questions on the floor plans that anybody has?
Josh, I have one, if you don't mind. So I know right now that the area above the library, I think a lot gets used for our online courses where there's not necessarily a teacher, but the kids are taking some college courses. Are we looking at relocating that to the media center, or have we gotten that far yet? I'm not sure if we know where we're at with that.
That's a great question. So we have the media center, which is definitely an option. We also have some additional adjacent spaces. For some reason, I didn't put it on here, but we have some additional spaces that are resource rooms that can also be utilized. And on this floor, we also have, you can see these orange labs right here, or yellow. So the orange labs are resource rooms that can be utilized for that, and these are closed collaborative spaces that we can utilize. So we will have a small handful of additional classrooms that can be multi-purpose, that can be used for a period and then used for a completely different program in the next period.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on the full plans? Oh, yes, ma'am.
So with the student parking, because that's going to become the temporary bus loop, what's going to happen with parking?
Great question. So one of the positives that we are not constructing the addition to connect into CTE is that this existing parking lot, which is right here, which I believe is right now the senior parking lot, is going to be available, which originally our plan is to construct the addition. So this was going to be a total loss during the project and then after the project. So what we were able to do is we're able to take the spaces that we do lose here and be able to put students here. We will be constructing temporary lots, and we will have a temporary lot here for students. So our plan right now, and I believe that Mr. Jones has already kind of mapped out to say to students, hey, this is what's going to happen in the fall, this is what's going to happen in the spring, and trying to prepare everybody for that.
Yes.
So we do have a plan in place.
When we sold the parking passes this year, we did make sure that students knew, we sold it for first semester first so that we could make sure we got the plans in place and then to ensure. But as Josh shared, we've actually saved quite a bit of parking by changing the plans in that way. So I would anticipate, Mr. Jones, feel free to come on up, that we're actually going to have a lot more parking than we thought we were going to have at the beginning of the year for students. Come on up. Yeah, come on up. Or down, wherever you're from, if that's up or down, come on this way.
Okay. Good evening, Board, Chair and Dr. Whitaker. We have, as Dr. Whitaker said, we have already informed our students of semester parking. I believe we're losing about 100 spaces. So we know exactly who the kids are, how we can move them to the adjacent lot. And of course, we'll give seniors first priority and move from there, just like we did first semester. So we're in good shape, as well as with the new lots for our faculty, as well as our faculty who may have some mobility challenges. We already have them squared away from beginning of the year to now. So we're in good shape all the way around.
Thank you.
Okay. So, CET, so there was is it on? Yeah. There was a concern about that bridge thing and the distance from the math and science still to get over to the CET.
Yes.
Even though we've incorporated some, which I think is great, that's still quite a hike.
Yes, so we did a number of assessments, and Dr. Whitaker was probably the biggest advocate for making sure that we reduce that wing to be as short as possible, so that way the travel distance. Right now, our calculations based on an average walking distance is going to be is around 4 minutes. We've been able to get it down to 4 minutes from the furthest point of the classroom wing all the way to the furthest point of CTE.
Yeah.
Is what our calculations are. So that would be going from here at this point, and the student walking down, and then all the way down to any of these labs. It's roughly about 1,000 feet, total distance to be able to get for the students to be able to get around, and we're at a reasonable walking pace, not fast, not super slow. We calculate to be about 4 minutes or less of total time.
Another thing we looked at as well is the time in Blacksburg High School and the square footage to get from the classes to another class. We used that it was a great suggestion from Branch, who said, hey, you guys are really walking this distance at Blacksburg High School, and so that helped us as well to look at how far they were going within that building to know that amount of space would be, appropriate and allowable, that they would be able to go to the restroom, go to class. Kids don't go to lockers much anymore. It's just not something that many students, choose to have as a locker. But, if they did, it's right along that path. And we do feel confident that they'll be able to get there in the time.
In the original design, the wing went, not
Yeah.
the original design, when we took it back to the drawing table, the wing went almost out to here. And it was roughly, we calculate to be about almost a 7-minute walk. To be able to get there, and Dr. Whitaker said, no way. So we said, okay, so we redesigned and took a look at the existing space, and she still said, no way. So we feel comfortable that at this point that it is 4 minutes or less of a reasonable walking distance, time to be able to get from this point, the furthest point, to get to any of the furthest CTE labs.
Okay. The art labs or studios, are they on the second floor?
Yes, ma'am. They're on the upper level.
So how do students, because that was one of the things I was really looking at, is before, students could access outside, not anymore, from art?
So some things that we're really excited about.
Yeah, but you can still go outside. It's at the level, yeah.
So a couple things that we're really excited about is that it is directly adjacent to what was the child care outdoor area that had that wonderful barbed wire going across the top, which we're going to remove that, by the way. So a couple things that are really exciting is that we have that directly adjacent to the art labs as one option. So that really can become an art space, in that area, which is a safe zone. And then the second option is this is the 2 art labs here in the art classroom, is they can walk right here and then go out these doors to go out the back where the current modulars are, and to be able to access outside. So there's no less of a ability for the art students to be able to go outside than there is now. As a matter of fact, what our hope is that the art students could really kind of make this their outside space that is there for, to be able to be outside and do the things that you may not want to do inside of your lab itself. So those are the 2 options the art students have. The one other thing that's important is, while there's no windows in this wall right now, so if you're standing looking at the loading dock, right now that's just one big brick wall. As part of this project, what we're going to do is we're going to be putting windows in, so every art classroom is going to have actual windows with that exterior wall, which is one of the deficiencies that most of your classrooms have right now.
Okay. That's it for now.
Okay, so my favorite topic of conversation, we're going to talk about potties. So potties are very much a challenge. And why? Why are they a challenge? They're a challenge because we have this wonderful thing called TikTok, which, by the way, I'm being facetious. I don't care for TikTok at all. Because there's all these great challenges like, hey, let's tear toilet paper dispensers off and soap dispensers off the wall. And let's do graffiti and let's video it and then post it. That's super awesome. No. The latest challenge is let's get into a fight, because one of the challenges with bathrooms is there's one door, and so what the students do is they get inside of there and then they all pack in, and that way it's very difficult for teachers and administration to get in there. So And then the third thing that's going on since long before we were all kids is the amount of bullying. The amount of bullying that happens in bathrooms is never tolerable. Now, of course, you girls, you don't understand because it's only boys that do bullying. You guys don't do that, but boys get bullied a lot in the bathrooms. And so those are really the three primary challenges that we have. So what we can do is we have two options. We can just keep doing bathrooms the same way we've always done bathrooms and say, administration, this is your problem, fix it, which is a really awful thing, for us to do. Or could we look at redesigning the bathrooms to make them friendly for everybody, to make them much more of an open environment? And that's what we're proposing at CHS. So this is the kind of a blow up of the toilet room. And what this is showing is that the space is open to the corridor. Okay, we'll show you a couple of exterior elevations of what this could look like. So this is all open, even though the colors are different. But so this is showing the sinks and everything that is hand washing, drying, getting that is going to be outside and very visible. So the only time that you're private, that you're discreet, is when you're doing your most private activities. So every toilet stall is individual, and the stalls go from floor to ceiling. I know if you went to Sheets and you stop in your way in the Sheets here, there's that big gap, which here in the U.S. we are terrible about toilet room privacy. We're awful at it. Not only that, but if you want to know who's in there, there's always a gap in between the door and the walls. So in 2015, there's so many things I love about Virginia. In 2015, they decided to change the code and said, okay, before 2015, you either had a boys or a girls toilet, and if you didn't do that in your buildings, it didn't count. So if you had a non-gender based, a unisex toilet, a family toilet, whatever you want to call it, it didn't count. So in 2015, they said, no, we're going to stop doing that. So what we're going to say is that a toilet is a toilet, but if it is a unisex toilet, if it's a family toilet, if it's a non-gender specific, it has to go floor to ceiling. The wall and the doors have to overlap, and you can't see who's going to potty, who's going in, who's inside of the walls. So every single one of these toilet stalls is an individual stall. So again, when you're doing your most private activities, no one knows that you're in there. No one can, hand you toilet paper, from below the stall. It is completely private. And so so what this helps is from a bullying standpoint, it reduces that. Now it's visible, so that way the amount of destruction that's happening is much more visible.
We are having a lot of destruction of property in our bathrooms, and our custodians are continually battling things being ripped off the walls, having to replace materials. And this type of bathroom provides us a more safe environment. As Josh shared, we'll still have both types, but in this type of restroom here, our administrators are going to be able to see from the outside. Only one child would be obviously in a restroom at a time, and we really just believe it's going to provide an opportunity for the students who choose to use this restroom. Again, the reason was really at my request when we started, and it was because of safety, to look at bullying, to look at destruction of property, and also to provide two different types of restrooms, because people feel comfortable going to the restroom in different spaces. Some kids won't go in a place where there are others, say like in the traditional bathroom that we would speak of. They will literally not go to the restroom while they're at school. This is a very common occurrence. You have other students who wouldn't go in this type of restroom because they may think somebody walks in behind them knows what they were doing in there. So providing both types of restrooms was really a recommendation that I had, so that our students would feel comfortable going to the bathroom at school regardless of how they feel, and really too also to provide that additional safety and security and administration a better opportunity to be supervisory as well.
Dr. Whitaker, do you mind if I add something to that?
Sure.
I know we have a huge problem with vaping and other drugs in our bathrooms.
Yes.
More than huge, very huge. And it's getting worse. That's a huge concern to me and for our students. I could get into that big time, but I won't get into that discussion tonight. I had spoken with the previous administration some, and I think some of my fellow board members might remember me bringing up the fact that I do believe there are some vape alarms that can be installed in bathrooms now. Have we thought about looking at those?
Yes, ma'am. So every single stall is going to have a vape alarm. So what's awesome about this, because it's only 3 foot wide by 5 foot deep, it's a much more condensed area. So instead of being in a general area where it's much easier to make it go away, we're proposing to put vape alarms in every single stall, along with smoke detectors, along with lights and ventilation. So that way, again, your experience in there is going to be as private as possible. And again, if the alarm goes off, the administration will be alerted and say, hey, and there's an issue, and they can
Yep.
wait.
That's right. And there's no passing under the stall or over the stall, that
Excited to
space is
hear this.
contained.
Hopefully that will help tremendously, but that has been a huge concern, I know, for a lot of parents and students as well. So I'm very happy to hear that. Thank you.
So this is just a snapshot of what this could look like. So what we're showing is, as I said, sinks are open. So this is the corridor. So you're just walking down the main corridor. So the sinks are all open to the corridor. Some things that we'll continue to play with on every, because we're doing this concept at multiple schools all throughout the Commonwealth. Because the challenges that you have here are the same challenges that Amherst has and Hanover has and everybody else has. So where the toilet paper or the paper towel dispensers, where the mirrors are located, those are all things that we will continue to work through. We may have some areas where this is elevated to have a mirror at the station. So what you can see here is that every single stall is individual. It goes floor to ceiling. And I said, and they overlap so that way when you're walking down, you cannot see who is inside of the stall. Now I'm going to cross my fingers, and let's see if the video works. And maybe, and it is not working. That's a bummer.
It is an amazing video, though.
Ooh. Oh, no worries. Yeah, can you help? It's a video embedded in it, so. Well, so we had a really awesome video that was actually going to walk you from one side to the other. We'll make sure that's available so you can see it.
Yeah, we'll forward that to your board members as the video that it is.
So we had a really great video that was going to show you what the space, and again, this is still a space in development, but I said the idea here is this: we're focusing on the big three. Bullying. We're focusing on safety for and the amount of destruction that is happening, and the amount and to try to reduce fighting. If it's open air, those three things get reduced because you're no longer behind the wall and protected by that by being inside the bathroom. Now, as Dr. Whitaker said, is that this is one type of bathroom. We also have boys and girls bathrooms outside of the gym, outside of the auditorium. They do exist, and we also have individual stalls where it's just a single room by itself that exists. So there's really kind of three types of toilets that are available inside of the high school. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make it the most friendly for the most amount of students and the most safe for the most amount of students. So we talked a little bit about some of the reductions. So again, we redesigned the layout of the existing building and made a super, super high effort of trying to focus on making it more efficient. We reduced the addition by about 40,000 square feet. And we did that by utilizing the existing building a little bit differently, or a lot differently. And we took away the connection over to CTE. We got rid of the bridge, which was one of the high dollar figures as we were looking at the budget. But what's important is that we did that again without taking away any standard classrooms and without reducing the square foot of one single classroom. So we just looked at things differently. We redesigned the MEP systems. As a matter of fact, we're still working with the teams to develop that. We redesigned the exterior elevations. As you saw, based on your comments, along with other comments from the administration and the team, we reduced the site impact by 50%. So again, everything that's happening on the opposite side towards the development, none of that is occurring, which was also a big dollar saver. And then working with Branch, we looked at other additional cost-effective materials. From a time standpoint, this was the schedule that we presented you a couple of months ago, and we are very much on schedule. So over the months of August and September, we worked with actually we're still doing it, worked with MCPS and Branch to look at availability for cost reductions, whether it was square footage, whether it was material changes, and then the design team, the architects and engineers have all been, over the months of October and now November, are working on redoing our drawings. Because Branch really cannot price this without having our updated drawings. So right now, our plan is on November 18th, which is 2.5 weeks away, that we're going to be giving the set very similar in detail level to what we gave to them in June, and to give all to other subcontractors for repricing. Some things that we believe are to our benefit is that not only have we reduced the amount of addition, we've rethought the materiality of the project, but also there has been a smidge of leveling out of construction costs, which is not really downside, but it's also there. And so that is so we are planning, as I said, before the Thanksgiving holiday to give those drawings to Branch. And then over the last bit of November and then December and then going into January, Branch is going to be working on that GMP. So our plan, and I don't want to speak for them, but our plan is in January is to have that revised GMP coming back. And then if we still find ourselves a little bit over budget, we can also look at additional material changes based on information from the contractors. But our goal is not to reduce any more square footage. I think at this point we are about as low on square footage as we can get, and then we'll do the if everything is good and we're under budget, we're going to finish the construction drawings out, and then Branch will. The goal right now is for us to start working in the spring and then really start seeing the addition to happen in early, late spring, early summer. Most look at the early summer right after graduation. And that's where we stand right now. So we are very much on schedule from what we talked a couple months ago. I think I said that I really, really thank the MCPS team. Has been wonderful. Everybody, including Branch, has been a great partner in this. Everybody's been working hard to get us to this point. So while I got to present this, really everybody is owed a round of applause for getting us to where we're at. So any questions or thoughts?
Hold on one second. I just want to make sure that we adhere to our time constraints that we have. So thank you, Josh, for your presentation. You can stay there because people are going to have questions.
Okay.
You stay. Okay. No, I meant us keeping to our new agreed upon time constraints. So we'll see how effective we are. Ms. Bond?
I'll be quick. You might have said it and I just totally missed it, but the dates from 24 to 26, is that supposed to be 24 to 25, or is that?
Being that we're
complete construction till 26.
So the challenge that we have is that to try to limit any impacts on educational program, especially CTE, we're going to need all 3 summers. So we need summer of 23, summer of 24, 25, and then it may stretch into 26. Right now, again, we're still working on the phasings. On the phasing, as a matter of fact, we meet again on Thursday. But we think right now we may be going into 26, and especially needing that summer to try to keep all the CTE labs open all the time. And so that's so right now that is our potential schedule going into 26 right now.
Yeah. And also where the addition before was so much larger, the plan at that time had been do the addition, move everybody over, and there's not enough space in the addition to move everybody into it at one time. So it'll have to be one set of students moves in, another part of the building is renovated, then those students move into their space, another group of students moves into the addition. And so where we had to get within the price, bring that down. And also, I think that original timeline might have been a little bit advantageous in terms of the amount of work that we need to do and pulling that back in. So I think that we're right on track with this and won't have to, as he said, close any programs down or tell students they can't complete something, right? Like my daughter's in cosmetology. She'll be a senior next year. If we were closed half the year, she wouldn't be able to get licensed. And so it's going to allow us to get both of those pieces done. But the real piece was there's not enough room to move everybody into at one time. And so because of that, you really have to do it in phases.
Understand that. I just didn't see 25 up there, and that would make the 4th summer. That's the only reason I was asking that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought the same thing, Jamie. I was wondering, is that a typo?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I could have included that, but the goal was to show the end. It was to show what the end is going to be. So, but yes, we will be working all the way through 20. As of right now, 26. So 25 is counted there.
Okay. Dana, any questions for Josh?
No, you answered mine. Thank you.
Marty? Penny? Linwood?
I mean, I just say, you know, it's a good, some more good out of the box thinking over here in terms of, you know, some of the redesign. I think there's a lot of cool stuff in there. I mean, for me, again, it just boils down to what the cost ends up coming out, right? I mean, we're trimming 40,000 square feet. So look forward to that new cost estimate.
I have a question. Could you go back to the first floor schema? I was trying to follow, and I guess you can't zoom in there, I don't know. But we talked about this last time, the locker rooms and having additional changing rooms. Is that still on? It was hard to, I had to like blow it up to 500, and even then I was still struggling with exactly what's going on there.
Yes, ma'am. So we're working on 2 different plans. One of them is going to be to, inside the locker rooms and team rooms themselves, is to have a changing room in there. So you go into the boys' locker room and you want to get changed, you just don't feel comfortable getting changed for everybody, you can go into one of those changing rooms. Additionally, in the quarter itself, and you can, well, maybe right there as an example, we're going to have changing rooms that are right in the quarter. So if you don't even want to go into the locker rooms and team rooms, you can go in and get changed in that enclosed booth, you know, that again is going to be completely private, so you can go in and get changed and come back out, and you don't even have to go into the locker rooms themselves if you don't desire.
When you say completely private, right, I think there was a misunderstanding from some people in the public before that these were going to be wide open rooms for anybody. No, these are private stalls, correct?
Yes, so if you, Macy's changing room, so you go in, you shut the door, and it's a little bit larger than a toilet stall, but there's not going to be a toilet in there. So you know, the building would be large enough to be handicap accessible, size-wise, but large enough for you to go in, you lock the door, you get changed, and then you come back out, and then it said that we don't even have to go into the locker room or team room if you do not feel comfortable doing that. So we're looking at it from 2 perspectives. One is having changing rooms inside the locker rooms and team rooms, and one having changing stations outside of them, so that way that we're providing the most amount of flexibility for all students. Did that answer your question? And we can certainly provide a bigger blow-up of that and kind of pointing to them if you think that would help in the future.
Possibly. Any other questions, anyone?
With the changing rooms, so where will students store their belongings? Are there lockers inside for each person to use, or they have to come back out and go into the locker room to store their clothes and belongings? How's that work?
Right, so if they're doing it in a locker room, if they go into the locker room and get changed, they can use one of the lockers there. If they choose not to do that and want to use one of the changing rooms, we're going to have lockers in the quarter itself, little, you know, pocket-sized lockers for you to be able to put your stuff into. So again, for those students who do not desire, whether it's they feel like they're being bullied or they just don't like getting changed in front of they can go and get changed in the room. They come in, there's going to be a bank of lockers right there in the quarter. They can put their stuff in, lock it, and then be able to go to phys ed class or go to the sports activity, and then be able to come back. So we're trying to make it as friendly for whatever your concern is, that we're trying to provide that different opportunity for those students.
Okay, so when you say pocket-size lockers, because at work, for some reason, they gave us little lockers like that and thought we were going to put everything in them. So are they going to be usable? Actually, you can get your stuff in there.
So we'll re-examine that. We were intending on kind of having them as a cubicle, like a 12 by 12. We can also look at doing a 3-foot, two stack high, and having a 3-foot by 12 by 12. You know, so that way that they can, if they want to hang a jacket or their book bag, they can do that.
Yeah, what size are the lockers in? What size are the lockers in the locker room? They should be the same size as the lockers in the locker room. Is my.
That's what I was going to say. Typically, when I think of, and you know, some of our high school folks might be able to help better, but I remember when we had gym, they were pretty small because it was for your shoes and your clothes, and so ours were about this big. But
what if you're competing in a sport and then you need bigger locker for something like that?
And I'm not sure that our current lockers in there are much bigger, are they? I'm looking for somebody to tell me. Yeah.
And so we could do a 3-foot high instead of do a 2-stack and then run it down, not a problem at all.
And
There's no cost difference.
And then one other thing within the storage, something Josh had mentioned to at least me earlier, was we were providing some more storage over there in the athletics, because sometimes, we've got the kids with their full bag of baseball bats and all of those things. And so providing extra space where students can take those things in the morning, drop them off. The athletic director has somewhere to lock that up. Is that still within these plans? And so I think that's a big need sometimes too, because they end up in the guidance office or whichever teacher, says, yeah, you can keep your stuff here. And so creating kind of, I don't know if it's called a team room really, but where they could drop those belongings off and not have to find, beg someone to hold the materials for them.
Okay, any other questions for Josh? Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep, have a great night, everybody.
Thank you all. If the individuals from Branch would stand up as well, I would just like to recognize them. Really, it is a collaborative process. We have worked together, we all meet together, and so I just want to thank you all for, I ask a lot of questions, imagine that. So I appreciate your patience and tolerance with me.
So I move that we recess for 5 minutes. Do I have a thumbs up on that from everybody? Okay.
It's going to be 10, but it's okay.
Well, we're trying to move it along. So, okay.
I'm hoping.
5-minute recess. Thank you. Run out to my car real quick and get my phone. Well, my daughter's having issues. Let's see if she's left me. I know. Okay, we're going to continue with our business meeting. We are now up to MCPS staffing. Dr. Whitaker?
Mr. Knott is here this evening to provide us an update on our current certified and classified vacancies.
Good evening. Did something wrong? Okay. So just like the last time I provided you with an update, I'm basically doing it in the same format this time. Assistant Superintendent of Curriculum and Instruction, once Dr. Bragan gets here, we'll move forward determining what's going to happen with that position. We do have a Coordinator of Support Services that we held interviews for last week, and we had a recommendation made today, so that position will be filled very soon, we hope. We still need a German teacher at BHS, and the plan there is if we don't find one by second semester, those students will take it through Virtual Virginia. We have a .5 gifted part-time position at CMS that we still need to try to find a candidate. There's one reading specialist that we're short, and that position is split between Auburn High School and Shawsville Middle School. So we're still looking for that. We have 2.5 special education teachers. The .5 is at CPS, and then one at Auburn High School and one at Auburn Middle School. CMS needs an administrative assistant. They interviewed, I believe, today for that, so we should have that one filled soon, we hope. We need a carpenter and an HVAC technician in facilities, and they're working on that. We have, last time I was here, we had 3.5 custodians. We have 3.5 this time. It's just different schools where those vacancies are now. We need a school nurse at Falling Branch Elementary School. And we still need one vehicle mechanic, and Eddie is working on that position as well to fill it. We need a payroll benefit specialist, and we have had a recommendation for that. They interviewed last week as well, and we've had a recommendation for that. So hopefully we're going to have somebody in that position very shortly. As we've talked about previously, 7 bus drivers is what we're listing as being short right now. We have 2 bus aides that we're short. We do have 5.5 special education aides, which is about the same as what it was last time. Again, just different schools from last time. Lunch recess aides, we need 4, 2 at Eastern Montgomery Elementary, 1 at Gilbert Lincoln, and 1 at Price's Fork. We need 2 instructional aides, and we have a preschool initiative aide at Price's Fork that we have to fill. And then we have a registrar aide at CHS that we need to fill. As for athletic trainers, we're in the same situation as we were the last time we provided this report. The only high school that we have a trainer in place is at CHS.
We do have the partnership with VCOM, and they continue to work to try to find someone and to staff football games and other events as best they can with trainers from Virginia Tech that maybe have a availability to help us, or with the team doctors that come to football games. Any questions?
Ms. Graham?
Can I go back to the first slide, please? So I know we've talked a lot about reinstating some gifted positions. And I know personally about the one at CMS and how hard that's been to fill the half spot for a while, off and on. And we need kind of just the right person, which makes it hard. So I don't know if you can answer this, or Dr. Whitaker or Ms. Neff, but would we have the funding to have a full-time slot, so instead of a half, a whole, and could that be worked out? If the board agreed to, whatever that cost was, if the board agreed to that, would it benefit us?
So I think you're asking, two different things there. One, do we believe it would be easier to staff a full-time position? I think yes. However, I also would say at the same time, the number of individuals certified to teach gifted, I don't know that would open up a pool of people not already employed. So it in the long term, yes, full-time positions are typically easier to staff. So it may be that it would, get us someone a little bit quicker. In terms of the budget, we did not budget for that position to be increased to a full-time. We certainly could work with Katie to look at that. But I would share, I get requests for additional positions almost every single day. So I would want to also, if the board would want to know that, say, here's all of the other people who are also asking, for additional positions. Not to say that I don't feel that gifted could benefit from that, but I just try to be, everybody who comes to me and says, I need an additional position, I say, we're going to work on that with our budget processes for next year.
Right. You're right. It was a two-part question. Yeah. Would we then be able to find somebody? And it sounds like it's much like guidance counselors, where it's very difficult to find candidates for that, because I know that's a hard pull. And then second, would it benefit us, and would we be able to fund it? But the board would have to agree to you doing that research to find that out. That was my only question. Thank you.
If it pleases the board, Dr. Whitaker and I did speak today about possibly doing these staffing updates every quarter. So at around the beginning of each 9 weeks, we would come back and provide a staffing update if that is something you would like us to do.
I would actually like it a little bit more often.
We can do that too.
I think monthly would be nice, to be honest.
No problem.
Not every meeting, but maybe.
The first meeting.
First meeting?
First meeting, yeah.
Okay.
And if it gets to a point where it doesn't feel like we need to, then we'll say we don't need to.
Be happy to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Knott.
We still getting.
Oh, I'm sorry.
A couple of questions.
Oh, wait, don't go away, Mr. Knott.
I apologize.
Ms. Franklin?
So where are we at with subs?
Subs, we have 408 on our roster right now. A lot of those subs are our student teachers, and they only sub for their cooperating teacher if their cooperating teacher is out right now while they're still student teaching. One day last week, we had a 100% fill rate for teachers. Yesterday, we had a 72% fill rate. Today, it was 83%. So we're still bouncing around. We know that we've had a lot of illness, not only with students, but with staff lately. And it appears this year, it's not the same schools that were being impacted on a more regular basis as it was last year. It has shifted. So last year, where we were seeing, for example, CMS and SMS being impacted probably the most of any of our schools, We're not seeing them impacted this year. It's BMS and AES is actually having some difficulty. Kim Regas, principal there, has already reached out to us today, letting us know that she's short subs tomorrow, and anything we can do to help her, she would appreciate it. So we've emailed out and asked subs to take those positions.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Custodians. I know I had mentioned that with the increase in size at Christiansburg Elementary, Christiansburg Primary, and Bellevue, that they needed help. And I know some of the issues that we have with not being able to get custodians and get them to stay is because they just feel overworked.
We actually had a conversation today about that in our operations meeting, team meeting today, and so we are looking into that.
Yeah, so two things that we're doing immediately. One is making sure, Chris was speaking with us today, Mr. Lowe, working with Robbie, Ms. Jones, the supervisor of custodians, to look at making sure that we still have folks in the places, based upon that square footage. The second is Mr. Lowe will put in his facilities plan recommendations when we build new buildings or we have renovations, that we plan for those additional staff numbers. And then 3 is in our budget process for next year. We do not have right now, a lot of wiggle room. We gave that 5% raise, so we don't have a lot of wiggle room in terms of additional staff. But as we move through the year, Katie will be able to tell us better where we are on track. She does her end of September kind of accounting to tell us where we are with benefits and payroll. But so we do have plans for moving forward. I know that doesn't address it immediately, but right now we just do not have the extra positions available within the budget to add extra staff into those schools. But we are putting a plan in place moving forward to make sure that we are requesting those, that the requests from staff get to you all, that you know what those needs are, so that you can work with Dr. Bragan to determine which ones you want to be your budget priorities. But then long-term, it should be a part of every time we add square footage, we plan not just custodial, but technology, all of our different departments. What extra support does it take to put this square footage in? Because it's not you pay for it and then when that bond, is paid off, you're done, because it is a long-term commitment when you add extra square footage on.
So are you saying for this year, there are no funds to be able to add? Well,
Yeah, I'm saying at this time, I do not feel confident that we can add extra staff. I think as we continue to evaluate our budget month by month, we can come back to you, but I do not feel personally comfortable at this time to add extra positions to the budget.
well, I'll just say, as I said before, we doubled the size of a couple of those buildings, and we still expect the same amount of people to do it. That's kind of insanity. So we better really seriously look at where we can find this money now to add those positions, because our custodians, sometimes it can be one person in the building. If someone's sick, someone calls out, and then what happens? And then we get emails and stuff from our teachers and saying the room's not clean, I'm having to do this and whatever, on top of trying to teach. So, this is critical as far as I'm concerned. And the formula that I've seen as far as the square footage and how much time you have to clean a room and get this done and whatever, you should be able to do that. And that's not realistic, because we don't know what's happening in those rooms every day. One room may need a little bit more than another room needs, or they all need a lot. Especially in the wintertime when everybody's tracking stuff in and everything. Anyway, we need to get this addressed. So, is that my 3 minutes?
The one comment I was going to make, thanks for getting this together. It's good to see this level of information. I guess, is this a typical amount of openings? Is this exceptional? Like, in terms of do we need to make new initiatives like we did with the bus driver stuff we talked about earlier, or is this kind of the norm and this stuff will get filled and we'll move on to the next?
So historically speaking, with our certified, our teachers, we don't have openings this time of year, typically. So that the openings that we've had with teachers is a little bit new to us, but I think it's like Dr. Whitaker has been saying all along, you know, the teacher shortage hasn't impacted us. Well, now it is. It's impacted other areas and not us. Now we're seeing the effects of that. With our classified employees, we do have what I call a revolving door, you know, where we hire, so we've hired bus drivers, you know, we've been hiring bus drivers, but then others leave. And so it never seems like we're catching up. And so that's why I call it a revolving door. Same thing with custodians. We'll hire some custodians and some others will leave, and we keep that vacancy number at about the same number. I don't want to say year round. It's lower this year than it was last year. So yes, for our classified employees, it's kind of a revolving door.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Wait, time out. Don't run away, Mr. Knott. He's trying to get away.
Way too much silence there.
We're working on it. So,
He has 3 more minutes.
so to talk about that revolving door.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I deal with that too.
Mm-hmm.
And it also has the effect that we're constantly training people, constantly trying to get them up to speed. So that formula is so much time to do this, again, does not work. So if we do things like with the bus drivers to be able to help support these folks, then full-time positions, we won't have to worry about that revolving door so much. I mean, it may hurt, but it's going to help in the long run to get some of this stuff taken care of the right way.
Well, you know, with the bus driver proposal that we shared tonight, you know, we're hoping that that's going to help. And, you know, hopefully we're going to learn a lot from that. And maybe we'll be able to reallocate funds to increase that number of permanent, full-time drivers to maybe 20 at some point, you know, and then really lower that vacancy number. And that may be then something that we need to look at in other positions that are the revolving door that maybe aren't considered
Right.
full-time.
Absolutely.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Knott.
You.
Wait a minute. No, I'm kidding. Okay, next up is the 2023 organizational meeting. We need to set a date, and I believe that date that's been proposed is January 10th. So does anyone wish to make a motion regarding an organizational meeting date for 2023?
So moved.
Okay, the motion is an organizational meeting date set for January 10th, 2023. Any discussion? Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond? Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson? Yes. Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion passes. Next, we have a draft of the 2023 school board meeting calendar.
I think it's informational.
It's information only. Yeah. I do have a question on it, though. I noticed that it's set that there's 2 meetings in January, one on the 10th and then one immediately the next week on the 17th. And then there's 3 weeks where we don't have a meeting for 3 weeks then, and then February 7th. Is there any reason we couldn't do the 10th and the 24th? So that they're spread out and we don't have one meeting right after the other? And it's nice to not have to have 2 meetings back to
I think probably it's just because it's typically the first and
Right.
third, but
First and
because
third.
that first week, so.
I just wonder, I mean, what does the rest of the board think of that?
That'd be fine. I don't see a holiday on the 23rd, so.
Now, the only holiday is, I believe, the 16th of January is a holiday,
Yes,
which is
correct.
Martin Luther King Day.
Other than New Year's, yep.
Yeah, other than New Year's. So if it pleases the rest of the board, I'd like to suggest we change the 17th meeting to the 24th of January. Okay, looks like shaking of heads means, or nodding of heads. Shaking is that, right? Yeah, nodding is this.
Yep, I agree. Is that better?
Okay, then we will move on to the next, which is the legislative priorities, a discussion item, and I'm not quite sure what we're supposed to discuss here, so I guess, we are scheduled to have our legislative breakfast on November 15th, except my understanding is we've only heard from, only one person's coming.
We did get a second response. Senator Suderline is going to be able to call in for about 20 minutes in between. He's going to be in a car, so on his way to a meeting, and he'll have about 20 minutes. And then we have one delegate who has responded that they can attend. I've either gotten no's or no response from all of the other state legislators.
Thoughts from everybody?
Brenda, correct me if I'm wrong, but we did not get a response back from 3, am I correct in saying that? 3 of the other legislators that we invited?
I wish I could give you that number. I don't have that in front of
Okay.
me. I either got no's or no response from all of the other ones. I have a list in my office. I did not bring it with me this
Okay,
evening.
that's okay. I was just trying to get a feel for the ratio.
Sure.
Yeah.
Delegate March.
You done,
Yes,
Penny?
Ms. Bond?
I'm not going to be able to attend that. I know I might have said that I could, and if I did, I apologize, but my 87-year-old mother-in-law needs a ride to the dermatologist for a surgery that morning, and who gets to take her? So she comes first.
We weren't going to be here on the 15th, Penny, because it,
And I'm going to be out of town.
And then our conference is, our
yeah,
annual
and then
conference.
several people are leaving to go
Yeah.
to the VSBA meeting starting on the 16th. So could I make a suggestion that we maybe not have the brunch or lunch or breakfast or what? It's breakfast.
It used to be breakfast, yeah.
What do
This
y'all
one's
think?
Zoom, but
I would concur to that.
I won't be available for that.
So it sounds like
it sounds like we wouldn't have a quorum.
no.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like, right?
Yes, I don't know about Mr. Chewbacca. I don't know if I'd be able to attend. I could try. But I'm not 100% sure I'd be able to either.
So we still need to have legislative priorities that we can give to these folks. So can we get what we had last year and look at that and see if there are changes or adjustments we need to make or would like to make? That'll give us a starting point.
Yeah, maybe you could send that to us, Brenda, and we can take a look at that. And at the next meeting, we can review. What do you think, Penny?
And Ms. Drake, am I correct that we used to have two different, one was like the breakfast where we would do presentations to our legislators, and then the second was when we would get sent to us the, where did those come from, the legislative information, from VSBA, and then that would be used, you guys would look at that to set your priorities, yeah, is that correct?
That's January, I
right.
believe, yeah.
Right.
So,
Capital
but,
conference.
yeah, but they're two different. The first one that you were speaking of is our board coming up with our priorities, and then the other is supporting
The
what
VSBA.
VSBA.
Yeah,
So it's like, what are our priorities?
Right.
yeah. So I did provide Ms. Cass with just a list of ideas that I could share with you all later if you wanted to see. And of course, I was really just trying to think about things that I had heard, but I did not want in any way for, it to be construed. I'm trying to provide those priorities. I was just trying to brainstorm and prepare a little bit. So I can share that with you if you like, but know that I was really just trying to think through what might be some things that you want to look at.
Okay. So that and our last year priorities
Sure.
was.
Sounds good. Okay, we're going to move on to the next then. MCPS policy 6-5.2, the school libraries, was presented to us last week for first reading. And does anyone wish to make a motion regarding this policy?
I motion to approve the changes to policy 6-5.2 as presented.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I appreciate their work on it,
And this is the one where it was
Kelly and,
the two head librarians came up and it was something that they've been working on, so. Okay. We'll go ahead. We have a motion and a second. Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion passes. Okay, next we have MCPS Policy 6-5.6, which was presented to us last week. This is the policy regarding,
Complaints regarding instructional materials and learning
well,
resources.
it's the complaint form.
Yes.
For the instructional resources.
Correct.
Okay. So do I have a motion regarding this policy?
I motion to approve changes to policy 6-5.6 as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion passes.
Great.
Next, we have MCPS Policy 6-5.9, and it looks like Mr. Polly is crawling up to the podium here.
There you go. So Mr. Polly is going to provide for you the process that is required in terms of identification of instructional materials. So as a reminder, Policy 6-5.9 is before you today. This is the second reading of the information contained within that policy, but is now made into its own standalone policy as requested by the board, but is the same information that was included previously, carved out and put in its own policy. So what Mr. Polly is going to share with you just is that process that will go in place with the required policy.
Okay, first, I'll just quickly go over an overview of the requirements as I presented last time we were together, that local school boards are required to adopt the model policies by no later than January 1st. We are allowed to alter the model policies to make them more comprehensive, but we cannot make them less comprehensive. So I will tell you that I copy pasted the model policy, tweaked the language just like to make it fit the context. In other words, their model policy made references to the model policy and I changed it to the policy. That simple, right? Other than that, I really didn't touch it. Within the model policy, and therefore within our proposed policy, there are some definitions, and so instructional materials and instructional materials are defined in the policy language, and it is couched in terms of, for the purposes of this policy, instructional materials are defined as follows. So I won't read that because you can see those and you've seen them before. Again, it also refers to library materials and how they really are not instructional materials unless they're used in a certain manner, and that's described within the policy and also on this slide. And again, with the footnote in both cases, we can make it more comprehensive, but we chose to keep it the way the model policy proposed it. It also defines sexually explicit content. And again, within our policy, this is a quote from the model policy and thus our own proposed policy of what sexually explicit content is, and it is written for you here as well as in the policy that you'll be voting on this evening. So an overview of the requirements, and as Dr. Whitaker said, we've created a process for schools to follow that meet all of these requirements. But first of all, the process starts with identifying all of the materials in schools that have sexually explicit content by that definition that was just up on the screen. And then to establish a process for notifying parents, and there's sort of a three-tiered approach to notifying parents. We're going to notify them in January once the policy is fully implemented and we've had time for schools to go through the policy. And thereafter, it will be an annual notification to parents. But anytime any instructional materials with sexually explicit content come up, there needs to be a letter that's sent out to parents for those particular classes. So it's going to be in January, and then henceforth it will be annually, right before school opens, and then as things come up. There also needs to be a component, as you will see in our process, for parents to review all instructional materials and to provide parents and their students, their children, with alternatives, as this policy says, in a non-punitive manner for any parent that requests it. I actually jumped ahead of myself in my explanation to say that we will do this prior to the start of every academic year, but first in January and then at the start of every academic year thereafter. This is worth noting. It's in our policy when determining whether or not instructional materials contain sexually explicit content. Teachers, principals, and division staff should consider the student's age and their maturity and whether a parent might reasonably consider the instructional content harmful to their child. So we are to consider it through that lens when we are vetting instructional materials for sexually explicit content. And of course, kind of the fail-safe is the parents get to review it and they get to ask for alternative assignments if they don't agree with that, with our determination. So this one is the as things come up, as instructional materials are presented by teachers that have potentially sexually explicit content. There's a vetting process that they go through, and then once it's approved, we have to provide the parents with notification 30 days before it's used in classroom instruction. So that, again, is from the model policies, copy and pasted. It's up to the principal, according to the model policy, and again, our own policy then, if we approve this. It's up to the principals at the school level to maintain their own list for their own schools and publish it on the school website, which means they'll have to update it annually, and they'll also have to update it anytime an additional material is available or added to the list, and then always give the caveat we'll do it by a letter. They'll always have to give the caveat that parents are welcome to come in and review the material, which is a bit redundant because we already have policies about parents being allowed to review instructional material, but it is explicitly laid out in the sexually explicit content policy. It does say in the policy that we have to have all of these materials, when possible, available online for parent review, that we are, as a school division and as individual schools, always going to defer to parents to determine whether or not they want their children exposed to certain content. That's the part that says that we will provide an alternative in a non-punitive manner. So here's the process part. Basically, the teachers have a part, and then the principals have a part. And the teachers, what they will do is they will review and analyze their current instructional materials and determine if any of it has sexually explicit content as defined by the Code of Virginia and those policies. And then we've created a form. It's actually in the form of a Google Sheet at this point, but we're going to turn it into a Google form. It will be easier to collect the material, but for ease of you all seeing it, the form does ask the teachers to indicate the type of material. You know, is it a picture, or is it a statue, or is it something written, and so on. And what the name or title of the material is, the course in which it's going to be used, the grade level in which it's going to be used, and the reason why the materials are identified by definition as being sexually explicit content. That form will go to the principal, who will look it over and sign off on whether or not it's acceptable to add this to the approved materials list on the website. And of course, if there are any questions, all of that will be forwarded to the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction and me. And so we will take a look at that and make sure things are being followed accordingly. So the teachers review all their materials, they see if anything fits the definition, they fill out the form, they give it to their principal. Yes, ma'am. Are you not able to click on that?
I got it. No, I have a question.
Yes.
Quick question. The form you're talking about, that's the one we just approved, right? Or is that a different form?
No, this is different.
Oh, it's a different form.
So
Okay.
the form you just approved was 6-5.6, which is complaints about the instructional from
okay,
outside.
That's a different form. Okay.
Yeah, this is, I refer to this as a little bit more proactive, right? This is the teacher saying, hey, some of this material that I'm
time.
going to
Okay.
teach. Okay.
Gotcha.
Like a good example in this is the family life materials, right? They contain sexually explicit content by nature of what the course is. And so clearly those teachers will fill out this form and explain the why, and the principal will sign off. What happens after the teachers turn all of that in, the principals will then send letters to parents. Initially, it will be a letter to all parents in the school to say, we've identified these materials. They are on our website. They're there for you to review. If you have any questions or concerns, contact us. If you want to inspect or review these materials, let us know. If you want an alternative, your child can have an alternative in a non-punitive manner. So that letter will go out sometime in January initially. And then again, as materials get added little by little, there may be additional letters that are sent out for individual materials, but there will be this annual review and this annual letter that goes out. And when I say annual review, I don't want to imply that teachers have to keep reviewing the same materials over and over and over again. They do not. The list can stand as it is. This is just the timeline that I actually was asked to clean up by the board the last time I was here. I even paid attention to Ms. Cass asking me to use the color code of pink. Do you remember asking me for that? You see? And so just to remind you, this originally, we proposed it to be part of revisions to policy 6-5.5. You asked if we could just relocate it to its own separate policy. So while it's under a different number, it is a second reading and so up for your approval. We intend to train principals. It says 11/3. That would be this week. We're actually going to move that forward 1 week to another. Instead of a joint principals meeting, Dr. Wickham and I are going to do it at our separate breakout secondary and elementary meetings. And we're going to provide them with the process, train them on what to do. I'll bet you the training lasts all of about 5 minutes. It's not terribly complicated. And then they'll get busy getting that underway so that by January the 6th, they can post it on each of their school websites. And then you'll see those caveats that I've actually spoken to several times already. So as you approve this policy, the policy says leadership will create a process. Here's the process. So if you have any questions.
So material that is on the list as sexually explicit.
Yes.
It does not come out of this school. There are just alternative materials for anyone who objects to it.
Right. So these are going to be materials that have sexually explicit content that are approved for instructional use in the classrooms, and that list will remain on the website and in teacher syllabi. And so as they come up and parents see and they're concerned, they can ask for an alternative, yes.
Okay,
it's just being extremely transparent about what material we're teaching. And when you look at those definitions of sexually explicit content, I dare say there won't be that much, right? I mean, in certain courses, there will be some that are necessary. Biology, anatomy and physiology, family life.
Some of your art classes.
Some of your art classes, right?
Yeah.
Don't ask me to elaborate.
Just,
I could see the smile on your face, Ms. Frank.
I just don't want to get into the situation where we're removing
We're
books.
not.
Okay.
In fact, it says in the policy guidance that came with the model policy that this is not to be construed as censorship. It is very clear to say that. This is just being transparent to parents of what it is, what are the instructional materials that are being used to teach their children. And Family Life already has an opt-out policy attached to it, and now this essentially has an opt-out. Other questions?
Anyone else?
Yes, I would ask just, just kind of hypothetically, like, depending upon some of these definitions could be open for interpretation, right? So potentially, or at least people might try to argue, like, what does that process look like? Like if someone comes to you and says, hey, I think this is sexually explicit or whatever.
I believe that would come under 5-5.6,
Yes.
where they would come up and say, we believe this is not appropriate. And so they would challenge it and fill out the challenge form. And one of the items that we added to the challenge form was, has this been noted as a sexually explicit content and were you notified within 30 days of its use? And if they say no, then maybe perhaps that's something the school missed, and then we would immediately review it. So the definitions are on the form, on the slide that I just put back up. If you click on the form, it's open to the public. You can look at the definitions as defined by the Code of Virginia.
That's right. Yeah, they're pretty clear in
Pretty clear, yes.
what and how they define it. There are a few that are not specifically defined, but they're pretty careful on exactly what they say is included in sexually explicit. And so you, again, can see that by clicking on that form there that he has linked.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? So do we have a motion?
I motion to approve, I guess, a new policy, 6-5.9 as presented.
Second.
Motion's made, and we have a second. Any other discussion? I think we've already had our discussion. Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion passes. Okay, now we're up to the Gifted Advisory Committee membership approval. Does anyone wish to make a motion regarding the Gifted Advisory Committee membership list? We have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin?
Yes.
Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson?
Yes.
Ms. Parton?
Yes.
Ms. Cass?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion passes. And now we're up to the report from our superintendent.
Yes. So I would like to give a couple of updates. First is, I know that Mr. Hudson had asked us to look for some information regarding Governor School. We did not have a presentation to give today. Dr. Wickham has reached out to the Department of Education to ask them kind of what would we need to do? What is the information that we would need so that we could bring to you all a presentation to speak about being able to perhaps do something like that? And we have not yet gotten that information from the state. They are continuing to work on it to provide it for us, but we just didn't have an update to provide for you today. The second, I'm going to say it again because we're really excited, is bonuses are coming soon, and they will be paid on the 18th, I believe is the date for that. Is that correct, Ms. Miano? So right before the Thanksgiving break, so we're really excited for that. And then lastly, I would just like to say thank you all to the board members and to everybody who works with us. I know I've been having some family issues with my grandmother passing away, and I just want to thank you all for your love and your support, because it's a very difficult time to go through something like that, and to have a work family who takes care of you means a lot. So I want to thank you all for that. And then also just say I'm really excited for Dr. Bragan to join. This will be my last meeting, knock knock, unless something happens in this seat. And so I just thank you all for that opportunity and say I cannot wait for Dr. Bragan to get here.
Okay, well, thank you, Annie, for all of your hard work since March. We appreciate everything you've done. We know you've juggled a whole lot, and we really appreciate you doing that and putting so much time and effort into keeping the train going.
Keeping the train on the track.
Keeping the train on the tracks, as we've been saying.
Thank you, definitely, because it's been a rough year all the way around, and I appreciate what you stepped up and did. Thank you.
Yep. And people just can't even imagine.
No.
Can't even imagine.
No, I don't think anybody can really comprehend how much you have had to take on and how difficult, and yeah, we've had quite the year, haven't we? So.
Yep.
Thank you, Annie.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Do we have, I don't believe we have any items of unfinished business, unless I missed something. Is there any items of new business? Any announcements? I'll do one real quick. I had the pleasure of being in the Blacksburg homecoming parade with my buddy Linwood in our really snazzy Camaro convertible. So that was fun. Practiced my wave ahead of time, and it was a nice night and good time had by all. Anybody else have?
I just think that that's a pretty cool thing for, Blacksburg has always, ever since I've been on the board, reached out to the board members and asked them for their participation, which I think has been an awesome thing that they've done. Kind of wish that all the schools would think about that a
Oh, see, I
little
didn't
bit.
know, the others don't do that?
No.
I didn't know that. I just made the assumption that the others did, but
No, but maybe this is something that they will take into consideration.
it was
But-
fun. It's a nice little parade.
Well, it's a nice way to get board members out there. A lot of community knows who the board members are. There's a lot of communities that don't know, or the community that doesn't know who the board members are, and just a way to connect with the community, with all of our different districts. So I think it's a really cool idea that they do
Yeah.
that. So
It was cool, and they had us right towards the front, so it was cool.
Yeah, Christiansburg has done that from time to time throughout the years.
Okay, any other announcements, anybody? So upcoming school, sorry, I gotta get away from that mic. Upcoming school board meetings, so now we've decided the 15th meeting, the legislative meeting's not happening. So our next meeting is our final meeting of the year, December 6th, our first meeting with Dr. Bragan, our last one of 2022. Maybe? Well, yeah, our last this kind of meeting, which brings up, actually, I need to tell you about another meeting. So when we were talking earlier, so on the 10th, I'm scheduling the closed session that we need to have. So Brenda, I sent you a message, and I'll get times out to everybody.
We have an issue with that date that I was unaware of, so I just found out in my email, so I'll communicate with you
Okay.
about that. Sorry about that.
We'll figure something out.
I was unaware.
Okay. Never mind then. So, do I have a motion to enter into closed session as authorized by Section 2.2-3711, the Code of Virginia, to discuss one personnel matter and two student matters?
So moved.
Ms. Drake, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Bond?
Yes.
Ms. Franklin? Ms. Graham?
Yes.
Mr. Hudson? Ms. Parton? Ms. Cass?
Yes.
6 in favor.
Motion passes. We are now in closed session.